Beneath that deep blue surface lies a world humanity has never truly understood. A realm where light fades away, where every sound dissolves into infinite silence, and where time itself seems to vanish, leaving only darkness, pressure, and secrets buried for millions of years. Have you ever wondered what hides beneath the vast ocean? We know that the sea covers more than 70% of Earth's surface, yet more than 95% of it remains unexplored. That means beneath those calm waves might exist things no one has ever seen, the remnants of ancient civilizations long forgotten, cities swallowed by the deep, ships resting motionless in darkness, and perhaps treasures buried by time. The ocean is not just the home of strange creatures. It is also a colossal history book still unopened, where every rising tide carries countless untold stories, perhaps traces of a civilization once more radiant than Egypt, perhaps relics lying quietly beneath layers of sand and coral, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them. And when you look into that shimmering blue, can you feel it? Another world staring back, a world lost to oblivion, where ancient stone roads may still remain, where giant statues stand silent in the dim waters, and where the secrets of humankind still rest at the bottom of the sea waiting to be told. Sometimes you may wonder, is the ocean holding the answers to the questions we've always sought? Where humanity truly began, whether a civilization once erased from history really existed, and whether the things we call myths were ever just imagination. Today we will not only gaze upon the sea, we will step inside it to uncover its mysteries, its stories, and the buried memories of the earth itself. Take a deep breath, for this journey will carry you to a place where light cannot reach, where time stands still, and where the ocean guards the truth of millennia. As we begin to descend into deeper waters, everything changes completely. The surface above becomes just a fading halo of light, slowly disappearing. Around us stretches an endless dark blue expanse. The sound of air bubbles escaping mixes with the rhythm of a pounding heartbeat. That sound melts into the strange silence of the ocean, making it feel as if we are drifting into another world, no longer belonging to the surface, weightless, timeless, surrounded only by breath, light, and absolute solitude. The deeper we go, the colder it gets. The light grows weaker. The beams from the diving lamp form pale golden trails in the vast darkness, reflecting off towering coral columns that stand like silent cathedrals. Luminous creatures drift past, each glowing like stars lost in an inverted sky, making it feel as though we are floating through a universe beneath the sea. At this depth, the world no longer follows the laws of the surface. Gravity feels light as air, sound is muffled, and every movement flows slowly and gracefully as if the whole space breathes with us. When the light reaches farther, we start to see huge stone blocks lying close together in shapes, too deliberate to be random. Some aligned in long rows, others rising like pillars, covered in coral and moss, yet beneath them are sharp and precise cuts that nature could not have made. We realize we are standing before something beyond imagination, perhaps the remnants of a great structure that once stood here long ago. Moving closer, the light catches strange markings carved into the stone, spirals and intersecting lines, forming symmetrical patterns like an ancient language unseen before. Each symbol holds a story, a message, a whisper from the past. Excitement and fear intertwine as we move forward a few more meters until the seabed drops suddenly into a vast pit, black and cold. We shine the light downward, but it fades within meters, disappearing into nothingness, as if swallowed by the void. Beneath that darkness there might be an entrance, perhaps a place where the ocean hides secrets humanity is not yet ready to know. We float at the edge between light and shadow, between present and past, feeling as though we are looking through time itself, glimpsing fragments of a lost civilization. In that moment, we imagine the city that once stood here, stone streets glimmering, temples rising toward the sun, people radiant in the golden glow of dusk. Then a roar, the ground shaking, the sea screaming, everything consumed in a single breath. And since then, that world has slept in eternal silence. The image passes through the mind, sending a chill down the spine, unsure if from cold or from a hidden fear seeping through the veins. Looking around, we see a row of fallen stone pillars, some broken, some still whole, all leaning in the same direction as if toppled at once by a force beyond comprehension. Swimming closer, we touch the icy surface. The fine sand drifts away, revealing intricate patterns carved with impossible precision. So perfect, it's hard to believe ancient hands could have made them. The beam sweeps across the carvings, and they seem to move, spirals unfolding like portals, drawing us deeper into their story. In the distance, a large structure appears, like the ruins of a temple. Triangular walls with a flat stone atop engraved with the symbol of a shining sun. Beneath it, wind lines of ancient script forming a spiral. The composition suggests worship. Perhaps this was once the most sacred place of the city. But as we approach, a cold current sweeps past, carrying a cloud of sand over the stone. The carvings fade away, as if something doesn't want them seen. We hover still, the light cutting through the murk, and for an instant, something glints under the sand. A faint, metallic shine. We brush the surface gently, revealing a piece of jewelry, perhaps a necklace or part of a crown, made of a strange alloy, untouched by rust or decay, cool to the touch. It feels as though it has existed for thousands of years, yet remains impossibly pure. On its surface is a circular symbol surrounded by wave-like curves. At the center, an eye gazes outward. That gaze seems to pierce through the water and the light straight into the mind, forcing us to hold our breath, heart racing faster. It feels alive, not an ornament, but a fragment of something powerful. A piece of a story we have stumbled upon by fate. When we look up again, massive stones form a circle around us. At the center lies an open space, perhaps once a grand square now filled with coral and sand. Shards of pottery scattered, objects eroded to ghosts of their shapes, all creating a scene both majestic and mournful, like a museum of time where silence tells every story. In the distance, a massive wall covered in sea moss appears, carved with hundreds of symbols and figures. When the light hits it, we see human shapes standing in the sea, arms raised, beams of light descending from the sky surrounded by raging waves, depicting a cataclysm, the fury of nature none could withstand. Looking closer, in one corner is the image of a colossal ship, unlike any known vessel, round and domed, resembling a craft of the sky. Perhaps it tells of something that carried these people away, or a machine they built to escape the great flood. The question echoes in the mind, blending with the sound of breathing through the regulator. Bubbles rising like fragments of thought fading away. The ocean grows heavier around us. Currents twist the sand into spirals. The light seems to dim, and we realize we are in a place where humans were never meant to linger. The thin boundary between life and the past, between curiosity and fear. Yet, despite the quickening heart we cannot leave, the pull is too strong. The feeling that if we stay just a little longer, we might see something humanity has forgotten for millennia. Then, as if in answer, a faint light appears in the distance, not from a lamp, not from a creature, but from the earth itself, soft and steady like a heartbeat. We swim toward it, every meter brighter, until we find a narrow crack between two massive rocks. From it flows a gentle blue glow. Looking inside, we see a hollow space, perhaps a tunnel. and at its base lies the source of the light. We know the ocean is hiding its secret there. Reaching out to touch the stone, it vibrates faintly. A deep sound echoes like the voice of the earth. Then suddenly a strong current surges, pushing us back. Sand rises in a cloud, the light vanishes, darkness and the sound of our heartbeat fill the void. Floating in the water, unsure of what just happened, we know deep down we have touched something beyond human understanding. When we surface, the night sky spreads above, stars reflecting on the sea like thousands of eyes watching. And in that moment we understand this journey has only begun, that what we saw was just the surface of a mystery 1,000 times greater. A mystery of a world long lost. A civilization that once reached greatness, then sank beneath the waves, and that the ocean is still whispering, still calling our name, inviting us to return and listen to the stories it has yet to tell. In the heart of the vast ocean, where sunlight slowly disappears and only the deep blue stretches endlessly, the journey of discovery unfolds like a dream, both real and unreal. Water surrounds on all sides, so silent one can hear the heartbeat blending with the steady breath through the diving gear. The deeper we descend, the stranger the world becomes. Tiny sea creatures glide past like fleeting sparks of light within the thick darkness, at depths rarely touched by humankind. The silence itself seems alive, telling stories from thousands of years ago, memories buried that only the ocean remembers. There the white sand turns into stacked stones, and suddenly, in the dim beam of the diving light, the shape of a massive structure emerges. Blocks of stone fitted perfectly together, with no trace of randomness, each bearing the mark of human hands. But whose hands? From what age? And why here in this cold abyss? As the light draws closer, carvings appear on the stone surfaces, swirling patterns and unfamiliar symbols like a forgotten language. Every detail radiates a strange presence, as if this place was once a thriving center, where people lived, breathed, laughed, and then vanished without a trace. Towering blocks form an archway, and behind it lies a vast hollow space, so deep the light cannot touch the bottom. It only glints off coral that has grown over the upper edges, forming a sight both beautiful and haunting. Each stroke forward slows time itself. The shifting currents brushing past the body create faint murmurs like distant sighs, perhaps from the souls of a civilization long gone, watching silently from the dark. In that moment, humanity feels small. In this immense void, all knowledge and all progress seem meaningless before what the ocean guards. The deeper we go, the more the ruins reveal themselves. Fallen columns, broken slabs, arranged as if by an unseen hand, to retell a forgotten story of a civilization that flourished brilliantly before being swallowed in one fateful night. People call this place Atlantis, the mythical city. Yet perhaps that name is only a symbol, an echo of human memory, for what lies before us surpasses all legend. These structures are not mere ruins. They are proof of intellect beyond time, their arrangement showing a profound grasp of mathematics, astronomy, and physics that even modern science cannot fully explain. In the faint light, a colossal stone statue appears. Its face eroded by ages, yet its eyes still gaze into the distance with a depth that feels alive. Its arms extended, half pleading, half warning, perhaps once a god worshipped by the ancients, or a symbol of a power that once existed, a power mankind has never understood. The carvings around the statue depict a city of light, people moving among towering structures, and above them strange airborne vessels shining beams of light to the ground. Could this be a record of a civilization whose technology reached heights we imagine only in fiction? Then cracks run across the stone, showing the city sinking into fire and flood, everything collapsing. The final symbols spiral into waves representing the sea, a farewell from an entire people. When the beam sweeps across the scene, fine sand rises, forming a hazy mist. The refracted light makes the whole space seem to move, as if those people still exist in their own world, drifting forever between time and oblivion. A wave of awe floods the mind, not from fear but from realizing the ocean knows more than we ever imagined, that ancient myths may not be stories but memories told through nature's language. The diver looks around, each sweep of the light revealing another fragment, a stone carved with the sun, a heavy doorway sealed by sediment, a paved road stretching into the dark, perhaps leading to the city's heart or a sacred place. Yet no one dares approach, sensing that the space ahead does not belong to the present, that something still guards it, an ancient weight of energy suspended and unpredictable. A cold current brushes past, carrying the feeling of a touch on the shoulder. But turning around, there is only the shadow of oneself mirrored through rising bubbles. In that instant, one understands that some secrets are not meant to be solved, only respected and heard. For the ocean is not merely the cradle of life, but the keeper of the planet's memory, where all that is lost can be found again in another form. Like Atlantis, it may have vanished, yet never truly disappeared, merely asleep, waiting for a moment of silence to tell its story again. When the diver surfaces, the first sunlight pierces the clear water, illuminating the ruins below, creating a vision as if awakening. Dust particles sparkle like freed souls. And in that sight, everything seems changed, not just the view beneath, but the understanding of the world itself, that there are things beyond human reason, that the ocean is not just a physical boundary, but the frontier between memory and the present, between what was and what still waits to be discovered. As night falls, a faint light can still be seen glowing from the depths like a call, like the heartbeat of the planet pulsing slowly in the dark. And perhaps somewhere down there, Atlantis still lives, still breathes, still waits to tell its story in the voice of the ocean itself. After leaving behind what seemed to be the ruins of a lost city beneath the ocean, the research vessel drifted quietly through the endless night, the sea calm enough to mirror the moon like a giant sheet of glass, small waves lapping softly against the hull like the whispers of a sleeping creature. And in that silence, everyone aboard felt that the journey was far from over, that what they had witnessed was merely the doorway to a mystery 1,000 times greater. Beneath the depths, there was more than the eye could see. The stones thought to be ruins might only be the edge of an enormous structure stretching for miles beneath the sediment. And the carvings on their surfaces were not decorations, but the language of a civilization that once existed, a message left for the future. The researchers began collecting samples, pieces of stone, fragments of metal alloy, each handled with reverent care as though touching the past. And under the microscope, they discovered that the alloy possessed a perfect atomic structure, unlike any known material, immune to corrosion, immune to oxidation, capable of reflecting electromagnetic waves in strange ways, as if it had been created for a purpose humanity could not yet comprehend. The air aboard grew tense, caught between excitement and unease, for if what they held truly belonged to an ancient civilization, then human history as we know it was only a fragment of a much larger design. Deep below, autonomous cameras continued recording, sending back blurred images of the seabed where long fissures glowed faintly like the veins of the earth. Sensors detected erratic magnetic fields, sometimes strong enough to disrupt all signals, as if something alive was pulsing beneath the planet's crust. A young scientist whispered that perhaps these were not ruins but part of an immense energy structure, a machine buried beneath the ocean, and that the carvings were its operational schematics. The thought silenced everyone, Only the sound of wind brushing across the deck remained. That night no one slept, eyes fixed on the monitors where ghostly images flickered in pale blue light. And then a colossal sphere emerged, hundreds of meters wide, its surface smooth like glass, covered in fine sand, yet faintly glowing from within, the light breathing like a heartbeat. Shock rippled through the crew, some claiming it to be an energy core or an ancient device still active. Others whispering that it was the heart of the city, preserving the spirit of its people. They sent down another probe, cameras recording every frame, and as the light swept over the sphere, the familiar carvings appeared circling it, identical to those found on the earlier ruins, forming a vast interconnected network across the ocean floor. When the signal came through, the team leader stared at the screen. The spiral symbol at the sphere's center began to glow intensely. Electromagnetic readings spiked. Instruments blinked wildly. Then everything went silent, all systems dead, leaving only the sea and the sound of waves. It took minutes to restart power, and when the monitors returned, the last image captured showed a surge of light spreading across the seabed before vanishing into darkness, as if it had never existed. The data revealed the energy emitted far exceeded any natural source. Its wave pattern resonated close to the frequency of the human brain, leading to the theory that this civilization may have developed telepathic communication, transmitting thoughts instead of words, and perhaps that very power brought about their downfall. The discovery ignited debate, some calling it proof that Atlantis was real, a civilization far beyond our own. Others dismissing it as a natural illusion of geology and light, yet deep down none could be certain, for they all felt something still alive down there, watching in silence. On the third night, as the vessel moved through calm waters, a strange phenomenon occurred. The sea behind began to glow faintly, millions of plankton lighting up in unison, forming a luminous trail miles long following the ship's path. But within the light shapes appeared, curves and circles identical to the symbols from the ruins, shifting and connecting into a vast spiral across the ocean surface before fading away. No one could explain it, but all understood that the ocean was responding, that it knew what they were searching for. Perhaps it wished to tell its story. At dawn, the divers descended again, signals stronger now, revealing a flat seabed where the sand had been disturbed as if something beneath had moved. Their lights uncovered a long fissure, deep and glowing with faint blue light, pulses emanating like the heartbeat of a living being. One scientist, unable to resist, sent a probe inside. The feed flickered with haze until the camera stopped before a massive moss-covered wall etched with carvings of people standing within columns of light. Above them, spheres floated like miniature suns, all linked by luminous lines, resembling a diagram of the city's energy system. The wall stretched for hundreds of meters, and at its end was a unique carving, a circle surrounded by 9 glowing points, and within it, a shape identical to Earth. The sight froze everyone, implying that the civilization knew of our planet, or perhaps once lived here before being swallowed by the sea. As interference grew, the final frame captured a glowing figure drifting across the view before vanishing. Moments later, all communication was lost. When they retrieved the probe, it was deformed, its metal casing warped and cables scorched as though crushed by immense force, impossible at that depth where pressure had been perfectly accounted for. Some whispered they had trespassed upon a forbidden realm, that the ocean itself resisted their intrusion, while others believed it was an invitation, a signal from an ancient world reaching those willing to listen. In that moment, everyone felt they had witnessed something monumental, something that could change humanity's understanding of its own origin. As the vessel left the area, the sea returned to calm. The moon still draped its silver light over the waves. Yet beneath that shimmer, something moved slowly like the breath of a sleeping giant. The crew stood in silence, listening only to the rhythm of the surf, and deep within their minds echoed the same question humanity has carried for millennia. Are we truly the first, or merely the inheritors living upon the ruins of a world the ocean erased? The sea remained silent, but its silence was not empty. It was the whisper of memory, a memory too vast, too deep, and too ancient for humankind to understand. And so the voyage ended in quiet, yet all knew it was not over, for the ocean had not finished speaking, and one day, when humanity is brave enough and humble enough, those secrets will rise again from the darkness, carrying the answers to questions buried for thousands of years. That night, the sea was unnaturally still. The wind had stopped, the surface smooth as glass, reflecting the star-filled sky. The research vessel rested motionless in the vastness like a lone island, drifting between two worlds, one of light above and one of darkness below, where moonlight could never reach. Everything that had happened over the past days left the crew speechless. They had seen light rising from the depths, markings that defied explanation, objects that challenged every law of physics they knew. And now, in the eerie silence, each person felt the ocean watching them, listening to every breath, as if deciding whether to let them go further. On the deck, the team leader sat alone, eyes fixed on the faint horizon, his mind filled with the images of carved stone walls, glowing spirals, and the radiant sphere of energy. He could not shake the sense that beneath those waters lay something more than relics, something alive, another form of intelligence that might have existed alongside humanity or long before. In a small cabin inside the ship, computer screens displayed newly recovered data from the damaged probe. And when the numbers translated into waveforms, an impossible pattern appeared. The energy signals from the object below repeated with rhythmic precision, like the heartbeat of a living organism. And for a short interval, the frequency synchronized perfectly with the pulse of the nearest human, as if the ocean itself was aligning its rhythm to theirs, observing them through invisible waves. A young researcher whispered that perhaps they had touched something conscious, not a machine, not ruins, but a vast sleeping entity or a being beyond the boundaries of matter. The words brought silence. A chill ran through the room, yet curiosity burned stronger than fear. For if it was true, they stood before a discovery that could redefine humanity's understanding of life in the universe. The next morning the sky turned gray, clouds gathered thick, and though the wind was still, the waves began to rise. The sea seemed to breathe, lifting and lowering the ship slowly. Instruments recorded a rise in water pressure, rare for this region. The scientists exchanged looks, knowing something below was stirring, as if the ocean itself was awakening. From the depths a low sound rumbled, not like an earthquake or shifting current, but like a deep tone of ancient music echoing upward as a call. The leader ordered an audio recorder lowered. The frequencies captured formed repeating sequences, precise 12-second cycles, not random, a pattern, perhaps a code, perhaps a greeting, but none could decipher it. That night, the crew took turns watching, tense but silent, not afraid of the sea, but of what it concealed. At 3 a.m, the deck lights flickered. Radar detected movement beneath the water 200 meters away, slow, spiraling, circling the ship. Cameras mounted below transmitted hazy images. Through the darkness, a glowing mass drifted past, 10 times the ship's size, moving effortlessly, soundless. Yet each time it neared, all electronics flickered, and every person felt a pressure in their mind, as if something spoke directly without words, only thought. A voice echoed within their consciousness, distant yet clear, telling them not to fear, that the ocean had always been here, had seen humanity for ages, and that what they sought were not ruins, but the memories of the Earth itself, the memory of an age long forgotten. The sensation faded within seconds. The light beneath the water dimmed, leaving the sea black as if nothing had happened. Yet all knew they had witnessed something beyond science. The next day, radar showed the object had not left, but remained still 3,000 meters below, directly under the ship, as if waiting. The leader gave the order to send down another probe, fully aware of the risk. When it reached the depth, the cameras revealed an immense open space shaped like a basin. At its center, the glowing sphere blazed brighter than before, surrounded by thousands of smaller orbs spinning around it, forming a vast spiral, like a miniature star system. The light within the sphere shifted from blue to white and began to expand, flooding the seabed. The screens flared with blinding light. A deep hum filled the air, and then every signal cut out. The ship trembled slightly. The sea surface erupted in radiant blue. A column of light rose skyward like a beam of pure energy stretching miles high, tearing through the clouds, then vanished in an instant, leaving absolute silence. When the systems came back, the probe was gone. No debris, no trace. An older scientist murmured that perhaps they had witnessed the reactivation of something, a machine, or the heart of a sleeping being, and that its awakening had altered the ocean's energy field. 3 days later, satellites detected electromagnetic waves emanating from the area, spreading hundreds of miles, disrupting communications, and the sea surface temperature rose slightly, its color turning deeper blue. Marine life around the site disappeared as if fleeing. The world began to take notice. International research ships approached, but thick fog formed over the region. Radar failed. Compasses spun wildly. Every attempt to enter was abandoned, and a week later the area fell silent again. No light, no signal, only the dark seabed as before. Yet those who had seen it knew it had not vanished, only gone back to sleep, waiting for another time to awaken, just as the ocean has waited millions of years to tell its story. The team leader returned to land carrying the alloy fragment. He handed it to the Institute, and for months, scientists found it reacted to the Earth's magnetic field. During solar storms, it emitted faint vibrations like breathing, and when placed near seawater, the salt particles aligned themselves into spiral patterns identical to the symbols carved beneath the ocean, as if the object carried a memory, a program, or a fragment of the energy that created it. Hundreds of experts studied it. None could explain its mechanism. They only knew it did not belong to any human era, and its material had never been found on Earth. The greatest question remained. If a civilization existed before us, where did they go? What did they leave behind? And are we now walking the same path? A cycle of creation and destruction. One evening at sunset, the leader sat facing the sea. The salty wind brushed through his gray hair. The sunlight painted the water red, and he thought that perhaps the ocean is not merely the cradle of life, but the soul of the planet, the place where all beginnings and endings meet, where every civilization leaves an echo no matter how faint. As darkness fell, he listened to the gentle rhythm of the waves, steady and deep like the heartbeat of the sea. And he knew the journey was not over, that one day humanity would return not to seek answers but to listen, to understand that some things are not meant to be explained but felt, because sometimes the silence of the ocean is the only answer there is. Morning settled over the misty harbor, the sky washed in a pale silver gray, and the water catching a weak sheen of light, like an old mirror reflecting the figure of a man standing quietly at the edge of the pier. The research team leader had returned to where everything began, his gaze fixed on the far line where sea and clouds blurred together. The memories of the voyage still vivid in his mind, the glowing sphere, the ancient symbols, the sound that echoed from the deep ocean floor, all of it like a dream too real. a dream that had changed the way he saw the world. He knew that from that moment on, the ocean was no longer just an immense body of water. It was a living entity, a vast, sleeping memory, and people were only wanderers on its surface. When he left the ship carrying that strange alloy fragment, he could not have imagined that what came next would surpass even his boldest thoughts, because from that very moment, the oddities began. The alloy was sealed in a laboratory in the capital inside an isolated glass chamber. Yet each night after the lights were out, the monitoring system recorded faint oscillations radiating from it, the frequency unstable, yet eerily matching the brain waves of a human in the dream state, as if the object were communicating or dreaming along with someone. The scientists began to test it, placing it near minerals, seawater, and metallic compounds. And the impossible happened each time. Its surface changed, a soft light spread, the symbols faded, then sharpened, reacting to the environment as if waking. A young researcher who had sailed on the expedition tried stimulating it with ultrasound, and in an instant, the room seemed to vibrate, not strongly but deep, and even a sound that could not be heard by the ear but felt by the heart, like an echo from a far place. When the instruments rendered the result, everyone fell silent. The return signal was not random. It formed a rule-bound sequence with repeating phonetic patterns, like a language trying to speak, only beyond human comprehension. They converted the data into audible tones, and the room filled with a long, slow, mournful resonance, a song rising from the ocean's deepest place, pulse by pulse like the lullaby of the planet, a sound that tightened the chest with a feeling both peaceful and haunting. The more they studied, the more the object seemed to reveal a memory. When bathed in white light, it reflected an image of waveforms like a map not of the present Earth. Its contours matched ancient shorelines, perhaps a world drawn before the continents split. A wild hypothesis took shape, that the object was the remnant of a prehistoric civilization older than the Ice Ages, left as a message, a memory stone carrying the sum of their knowledge. When the news leaked, the world stirred. Scientific, military, and religious groups all sought the object. Arguments raged over its meaning. Some called it proof of Atlantis. Some called it the technology of beings from beyond Earth. Some believed it was a shard of the planet itself, a piece of soul condensed into matter after a cosmic event. The government imposed secrecy. The lab went into lockdown. Yet along the coast near the discovery site, strange phenomena spread. The sea glowed at night. The waves ignored their usual rhythm, at times lying still for hours, then suddenly churning as if stirred from below. Fish and sea creatures moved erratically. On some nights, a deep bell-like tone drifted up from the water, long and ancient. Specialists reached the shore and found the local magnetic field in constant flux, as though a colossal energy source worked beneath. And the most chilling detail was that the oscillations matched the frequency the object emitted in the lab, which meant the ocean was responding. It was alive. It was communicating. On the seventh night, with a full moon over the sea, people on the coast saw blue light lift from the depths and unfurl like long ribbons. It mirrored on the clouds and turned the whole sky into a glittering ocean. Within the light, faint figures moved, human-like yet not human, tall, slender, drifting as if afloat. No one heard a voice, yet everyone felt their presence, a quiet sadness, as if they had come to gaze upon a world they had lost. Some fainted, others wept without knowing why. The air itself was heavy with a longing that reached the soul, as though they had once known, once met, once lived within that world. At the same time, the object in the lab blazed so bright, the glass housing cracked, light poured through the room, electronics died at once. But instead of panic, everyone stood entranced by scenes unfolding in the glow, Soaring towers, radiant cities set upon the sea, people walking on luminous stone. They did not speak. They looked upward at a sky lit by 2 moons. Then the light thinned, the city crumbled, the sea rose. Everything fell into darkness, and a final spiral of light remained, the twin of the sphere beneath the ocean. When the light went out, the object fractured, broke into hundreds of tiny pieces that fell like drops onto the floor and dissolved. A trace of salt air lingered, and in that moment they all heard a whisper, very soft, like wind against the ear, saying that we have come home. After that the object was gone, yet the sea continued to glow for 7 nights, then stilled, and everything seemed ordinary again, as if nothing had happened. But the scientists knew the world had shifted. The electromagnetic signature of Earth had moved slightly, and certain regions of the seafloor no longer returned radar, as if a veil of energy had been raised. Some said the sphere beneath the ocean had awakened, no longer an inert thing but a fragment of the ocean's own mind, quietly tuning the balance of the planet, and perhaps in a distant future, when people understand, it will open the door again so humanity can see its true memory. The team leader left the city and returned to the old coast. He lived in a small house facing the open water. He rose early each day to watch the sun lay its path across the waves, and he often said that if you look closely you can still see a faint light below. You can still hear a far song, no longer frightening but familiar, like the voice of an old friend. One day he lowered a small recorder into the water, and when he played it back he heard, beyond the surf, a deep, steady tone like a heartbeat, and within the pauses a quiet voice, faint but clear, saying that we are still here, we have never left. He stood still, knowing the ocean had accepted him, knowing that an invisible thread linked people to the sea across thousands of years, a thread of memory and spirit. He smiled and looked up at slow, drifting clouds, and he understood that the journey of humankind was only beginning. For when people learn the language of the ocean, they will understand themselves. They will know that every creature, every drop of water, every breath belongs to the same story, a story the sea has written since the first dawn and is still telling now in a language without words, deep and eternal. Months had passed since the glowing object beneath the sea had dissolved, and the world slowly returned to its familiar rhythm. Yet for those who had witnessed it, especially the research leader, the memory never faded. Each night when the waves brushed the shore and the wind moaned through the masts in the harbor, the sound reminded him of that deep, resonant tone rising from the ocean's heart, a sound belonging to no instrument, but seeming to come from the earth itself. He lived quietly in a small house perched on the cliffs overlooking the sea. His days spent recording strange phenomena only he seemed to notice. Tides that broke their patterns, streaks of blue light that flashed and vanished in an instant, low vibrations echoing up from the depths on full moon nights. He told no one, knowing few were ready to believe. The ocean was still speaking, but only those who listened with their hearts could hear. One misty morning he walked to the shore, the sand cold beneath his feet, the sky a dull silver reflecting the first light of dawn. And through the fog he saw a figure standing at the water's edge, thin and draped in white, hair flowing in the wind. The figure never turned, only stared out to sea. And when he took a step forward it faded, carried away by the breeze, leaving faint footprints that vanished as the tide rolled in. He understood then it might not have been human but a spirit of the ocean, a reminder that the journey was not over. That night, the moon rose high, its reflection stretched across the water to the horizon. Sitting by the window, he listened to the sea and felt the familiar rhythm returning, the sequence of tones he once recorded from the object below, now pulsing in his mind, steady and clear, as if someone were calling his name. Drawn by an unseen pull, he rose, took his old recorder, and went to the beach. The wind whipped harder, The waves grew high, but he felt no fear, only the certainty that the ocean was inviting him back, not to discover, but to understand, to hear what humanity had long forgotten. As he stepped into the surf, the moonlight cloaked him in silver. He lowered the recorder into the water, and at once the screen glowed. A low hum filled the air. Then a pattern of tones appeared. This time it was not just sound, but speech, soft, slow, and gentle like a whisper saying that memory never dies, it only sleeps, and what has happened will happen again, until people learn to listen, to remember. He stood still, water rising to his knees, waves circling his legs, yet he felt no cold, for in that moment he was one with the sea, no longer two beings, but two currents from the same source. From then on he began to write, not in scientific terms, but from feeling. He wrote of the ocean's spirits, of unseen life within the waves, of sunken cities where time stands still and the echoes of humanity's first memories still linger. He wrote that mankind was not the first dreamer. The ocean was, for it dreamed life, dreamed light, and dreamed us. And within its dream lies our past, our future, our hope, and our fear. These pages were for no one. He filled old notebooks and stacked them by the window facing the sea. Strangely, each time he finished writing, the wind rose and the waves swelled, as if the ocean were answering, saying it heard, saying it agreed. One night a storm came, thunder flashing again and again, yet he did not flee. He opened the door and let the wind sweep through the house. In a burst of lightning, he saw far out at sea a column of bright blue light shooting skyward like before. But this time it did not fade. It burned for minutes, lighting the heavens, and within it he saw shapes moving, not human, not fish, beings made of light, floating, returning. Then the glow vanished, the storm calmed, and the sea lay still, as if it had never raged. The next day, villagers spoke of strange lights over the water. Some said a spacecraft, others blamed the atmosphere, but he knew it was a greeting, a sign of awakening, that the ocean had reopened its memory and the cycle had begun again. After that, he grew weaker with age, his hands trembling, though his mind clearer than ever. He began telling stories to the village children about the sea, the lost city, the souls of water. The children listened wide-eyed, learning that the ocean was not only vast and fearsome, but alive, a great friend to humankind. The tales spread through the region, retold by others. Yet none knew that each time he spoke, he heard a faint sound in the wind, like soft laughter, like a thank you from below. One evening at sunset, he went to the shore for the last time. The sky burned red, and the water blazed with reflected light. He walked slowly along the sand, listening to the waves, until he heard the familiar call again. Not loud, but clear, a gentle invitation. He stopped, gazed toward the open sea, saw the faint blue glow return, and smiled. Peace shone in his eyes as he stepped into the water. The waves rose to embrace him, soft and tender, and he vanished into the sea's reflection of dusk. He was never found again, only his old recorder left on the sand, still playing the sounds of wind, surf, and his calm voice whispering, "Listen, the sea is telling a story." Later, people said that on nights of the full moon, if you stand on that beach, you can hear a voice in the distance, not distinct but warm, sometimes laughter, sometimes the long hum of waves, as if the ocean and humanity were together writing the unfinished tale of memory. And somewhere beneath the water, the ancient glowing sphere still rests, beating slowly like the heart of the planet, reminding all that the past never dies. It only waits for those brave enough to listen. Thus the story of the man, the story of the sea, and the story of humankind merged into one endless symphony, where every wave, every gust of wind, and every breath became a note of life, echoing forever through the boundless ocean, where memory and the present meet in the blue light of eternity. Many years passed since the research leader vanished into the ocean. The small coastal village where he once lived had changed. Old houses replaced by modern buildings, the harbor expanded, crowds growing busier each season. Yet one thing never changed: the sound of the sea, the endless rhythm of waves, sometimes soft, sometimes fierce, forever telling an ancient story no one could fully understand. The villagers still spoke of the man who had once talked to the ocean, the man who disappeared into the sunset with the song of the sea. Some believed he had died, others that he had become one with the water, part of the very world he loved. On moonlit nights, a few swore they saw his silhouette far out on the horizon, where faint blue light sometimes shimmered beneath the surface. The story became legend. Children grew up hearing it, but time washed everything away, and modern people stopped believing in mysteries. To them, the sea was only a resource, something to harvest, to travel, to conquer. Few still listened to its voice, but one day the ocean spoke again, not with sound, but with action. On an ordinary morning, as fishing boats worked offshore, the sea suddenly changed color, from bright blue to deep indigo, and light surged from below so intensely that the whole expanse seemed to glow. Fish surfaced in great numbers. Pods of whales moved in long lines, all heading toward a single point about 50 nautical miles out, the very spot where the man had vanished long ago. News spread fast. Scientists, journalists, and international agencies rushed to the site. Dozens of ships anchored, instruments were lowered, cameras, radar, and energy sensors activated. What they saw stunned the world. At nearly 3,000 meters deep, the great glowing sphere had returned, but this time it was not dormant. It was opening, bands of light rotating like the petals of a slowly blooming flower. Energy rippled outward, the sea quaked, the sky shifted hue, clouds spiraled into a vast vortex, and from its center a beam of light shot skyward, brighter and steadier than ever before, as if declaring that the ocean had truly awakened. The instruments captured sound waves emitted by the sphere, the frequencies now structured, rhythmic, melodic, like a song or a language. Researchers analyzing the data discovered that the signals aligned with human brain waves, specifically those tied to emotion. When people listened, they felt calm, heartbeats slowed, minds eased, as if the ocean were speaking directly through feeling rather than words. Many aboard claimed they heard singing, language unknown but gentle and mournful, and they wept without knowing why. Some laughed, some trembled, all feeling something within them open, an ancient memory they never knew existed. As the light spread, the seafloor became visible. Around the sphere stood vast stone structures, rows of pillars, moss-covered walls, tunnels linked like veins, and at the center the glowing sphere pulsed like a heart, each beat sending ripples through the sand and rock. Seismic experts observed that the vibrations posed no danger, but seemed tuned to match Earth's natural frequency, as though someone were adjusting the planet's breathing. The more they watched, the clearer it became that this was not a natural phenomenon, but the reawakening of an ancient energy system unknown to humankind. Some proposed that a forgotten civilization once drew power from the ocean itself, not fuel or electricity, but the living energy of the Earth, and that the sphere was its regulating core. As news spread, the world erupted in debate. Some called it a miracle, others a warning. Still others feared disaster, for history had shown that whenever humanity reached beyond its understanding, the results were unpredictable. Nevertheless, an international team prepared to approach the sphere. They launched the most advanced submarine ever built, its hull able to withstand tenfold pressure, carrying the world's leading scientists, and among them was a young woman, the granddaughter of the man who had vanished. She had grown up hearing his stories, tales of a speaking sea and blue light beneath the waves, and now she wanted to see what had drawn him to the depths. As the submarine descended, light faded until only a soft green glow surrounded them. Near the heart of the site, everything blazed at once. The sphere pulsed with such power the hull shuddered, yet no one felt fear, only a strange calm as if being embraced by the current. The young woman looked through the viewport, and her heart stopped. Before her lay a city beneath the water, towers and avenues of stone, magnificent structures blanketed by coral and shimmering light. Nothing was ruined, nothing ancient. It looked alive, newly built, illuminated by the radiance of the sphere. Giant statues gazed upward with serene faces, as if watching humanity from below. Then a voice spoke in her mind, not through speakers, not from her crew, but from within, gentle and familiar. Her grandfather's voice saying that the time had come, that the ocean was returning memory to mankind, that life never disappears, it only transforms, and if people learn to listen, they will see that everything has a soul. Tears welled in her eyes, not from fear but from a vast love surrounding her, the love of sea and earth, of past and present entwined. As the submarine neared the sphere, the energy became too strong to proceed, yet the cameras kept recording. The footage that reached the surface silenced the world. Hundreds of luminous figures moved around the sphere, forms of blue-white light without bodies yet graceful, human in gesture, their movements filled with warmth as if they were the souls of those who once lived there, beings who had become one with the ocean. A blinding flash followed, then all signals vanished, and silence returned. Hours later, the submarine surfaced. The crew was safe but wordless, eyes distant, faces calm. In the young woman's hand lay a pendant of unknown metal, engraved with a spiral symbol identical to the ancient markings found on that first expedition. Back on land, she gave no interviews, no speeches. She simply walked along the beach, felt the fine sand beneath her feet, listened to the tide, and softly said that the sea remembers, the sea forgives, and humanity must learn to live like water, to flow, to listen, to reflect, for only then can the world understand what the ocean has been trying to say for millions of years. The data from the dive was analyzed for years but never fully explained. What was known was that after the event, the global sea level stabilized, weather grew gentle, dead oceans revived, coral returned, whales multiplied, polar ice melted more slowly, as though the planet itself was breathing easier, healed. Scientists called it a natural balance effect, but those who believed in the old story knew it was the ocean's gift, the gift of memory and awakening. And one late afternoon, as the sun sank into the horizon and the sea turned to gold, the young woman stood still watching the waves. In her heart she heard the familiar resonance, her grandfather's voice and the voice of the ocean blending into one melody, the music of time, a song without beginning or end, only eternal rhythm, where humanity, the sea, and memory are forever one. Time moved on and the world continued to turn, but after the event of the ocean's awakening light, everything quietly began to change. Humanity started to look at the sea differently, no longer as something to conquer or extract from, but as a living being, a vast creature embracing the planet, breathing, feeling, remembering, speaking in its own voice. Scientists called it the awakening of the biosphere, a resonance between the living energy of Earth and human consciousness, a connection once broken now restored. The frequencies once emitted by the sphere beneath the ocean were now detected across the world, not only in that region but in every ocean, from the Pacific to the Indian to the Arctic. Wherever there was water, there was sound, faint waves of energy spreading through the planet, calming storms, purifying the sea, and, strangely, where the frequencies were strongest, life returned fastest. Coral reefs regenerated, fish swam back, whales changed their migration as if answering an ancient call. The world slowly understood that the ocean was not only the source of life, but its heartbeat, the keeper of the planet's breath. And that realization changed everything. Nations that once clashed over marine resources began to cooperate. Young scientists left their laboratories for the open sea, no longer studying to exploit but to listen, to understand, to learn how to speak with the ocean in ways their predecessors never believed possible. At a historic international summit, the young woman who had once descended to the ocean's depths stood before the world, sunlight glimmering off waves behind her. She said that humanity had forgotten its most essential truth, that we had always believed ourselves the owners of this planet, when in truth we are its guests. The ocean is the cradle that holds us all. Every breath we take carries water once lifted from the sea. Every tear we shed tastes of memory. And when we listen to the ocean, we are listening to our own voice. Her words spread across the world, touching millions. For the first time, people felt they were not alone, that the planet was listening, speaking through every wave, every breeze, every drop of rain. Soon, research centers built a global network to capture the ocean's frequencies, recording every pulse of its energy. The data shocked scientists. The vibrations were not random but rhythmic, repeating like a heartbeat, like a language. More astonishing, they changed with human emotion. In regions scarred by war, the frequencies weakened, while in places of harmony they grew strong and steady. It seemed the ocean was sensing humanity's feelings, mirroring the world's collective soul. A new theory arose, the planetary collective consciousness, proposing that Earth was not just matter, but a living entity, with the ocean as its brain, its memory, the archive of every thought and emotion of every creature that ever lived. With this realization came transformation. Great powers turned from competition to preservation. Coastal factories closed. Devastated waters were restored. People slowed their pace, not from fear but from understanding, knowing they lived within a living being, and that every act caused a response. Every drop of oil spilled, every explosion at sea was a wound the ocean could feel. The young woman continued her work, no longer merely a researcher, but a messenger, a bridge between humanity and the sea. She founded an international movement where scientists, mystics, artists, and fishermen came together to listen to the ocean's pulse. They called it the Interference Project, believing that when people and the sea resonated as one, the world would reach balance. They began holding concerts using real frequencies of the ocean, music not composed by human hands but born from the vibration of water itself. The sounds were deep, slow, and achingly beautiful, moving listeners to tears. Some said they heard the voices of their ancestors. Others said they saw their own memories reflected in the tones. Each concert ended in perfect silence. No applause, no words, only the quiet understanding that everyone had just been touched by the ocean. During one such performance, as blue light filled the hall, she suddenly heard a whisper, not from the speakers or devices, but inside her mind, the same voice she had heard years ago in the deep, her grandfather's voice, soft as wind, telling her that the path she walked was the one the ocean had hoped for, that humanity had finally remembered who they were, and that each generation carried the duty to awaken the planet's memory so the cycle could continue. After that night, she returned to the old coast and stood alone on the sand. The stars filled the sky. The sea was still and silver, and she knew the sphere beneath the waves was still alive, still pulsing, sending its rhythm upward. She felt it through her feet, her skin, her heart, merging with her own breath. In that moment she understood that humans and the ocean were never separate, that the water within our bodies is a fragment of the sea, that every drop of blood holds the memory of the world's beginning, and every breath continues the ancient rhythm of life. She closed her eyes and listened. The sound rose again, not a voice, but a melody of existence, telling of vanished ages, of drowned cities, of radiant civilizations and their dreams, and of a future where humanity finally realizes it was never lost, only returning home. The next day she returned to the research center. On her desk lay a vast map covered in points of light, marking regions resonating with the original sphere. Together they formed a spiral encircling the planet, a glowing network awakening beneath the oceans. She realized the sphere was not alone, but part of a colossal system, spanning the seas, perhaps the legacy of an ancient civilization, or the living architecture of Earth itself. She knew a new age was beginning, one where humans were no longer rulers but companions, no longer fighting nature but living within it, relearning the old languages of water, wind, waves, and silence. One dawn, standing on the ship's deck as the sun rose from the ocean, golden light washed over the waves. She smiled, feeling the wind in her hair, and in that light, she thought she saw her grandfather's figure beside her, smiling gently. Far ahead, a pod of whales breached, their songs echoing across the water, blending with the wind, the surf, and the beating of her heart, forming the grand symphony of life. The wordless music the ocean had sung for millions of years, and that humanity was only now beginning to hear. She closed her eyes, let the seawater touch her hands, and whispered, "Thank you." For at last, humanity understood that the ocean was never something to conquer, but a place to return to, the keeper of past, present, and future, and that each of us is but a single drop in that infinite flow, small yet eternal, fading yet never gone, dissolving into the sea to become part of its everlasting memory. The sky opened after the great rain, and the first rays of dawn fell upon the sea, glittering like millions of breathing crystals. The wind carried salt and the scent of seaweed, filling the air with something at once familiar and strange. In the midst of that scene, the young woman stood silent by the rail, her eyes fixed on the horizon where water met sky, where light and shadow intertwined, what people still called the edge of the world. But she knew there was no edge at all, only the endless continuity of life in all its forms. She closed her eyes and listened to the waves, the wind, and within that rhythm, she heard the familiar sound the ocean had once sent to humankind. Not a distant echo now, but a clear composition with tempo and heartbeat, the breathing of the planet. It rang not just in her ears, but in her chest, spreading to every cell, until she felt herself dissolving into the ocean's flow. She knew her journey had reached its final point, not an ending, but a return to origin, to memory, to what humanity had once forgotten, that they came from the sea and would one day return to it, like vapor rising and falling as rain, like swells that surge and fade, like everything in nature finding its way back to itself. She saw the luminous sphere far away, no longer alone. Around it drifted thousands of smaller glowing orbs, stars beneath the water, tracing soft curves and moving together in a single pulse, like the planet's vast circulatory system at work. She understood this was Earth's energy network, the ocean's true soul, and that humans had only just been allowed to touch its surface. Somewhere in that depth, her grandfather was still there, not in flesh but as light, as the ocean's breath, as the sphere's heartbeat, and she knew he was watching, smiling, because the world he had dreamed of had finally awakened. As the ship skimmed across the water, schools of fish shimmered and followed, each tiny body emitting a faint blue glow. They were no longer afraid of people. They seemed to welcome them, as if the ocean had accepted humanity back after thousands of years apart. Far off, columns of water rose, not storm, but spirals of vapor, lifting, curling, and drifting into white cloud, moving with the wind. A perfect cycle between earth, sky, and sea. She smiled, realizing the ocean was singing, not for itself alone, but for the entire planet. As the vessel neared the light, the instruments began to fluctuate, but this time no one feared. All fell quiet and listened together. The sphere's radiance grew, spreading in waves, no longer confined to the water but reaching into the sky, touching the clouds and reflecting back upon the world. Observatories on every continent recorded the phenomenon at once. A gentle surge of energy covering Earth's surface, a blanket of light falling upon every creature, every tree, every drop of water. In that moment, the world held its breath. No signals, no machinery, only a single shared beat. The ocean's rhythm joined to the hearts of billions, as if life had returned to the first state of its making. Those who witnessed it said strange images filled their minds, memories that were not their own. Crystal cities in the sea, colossal beings, swimming among shining towers, people with eyes lit the color of water. Everything merged, no war, no fear, only perfect harmony. Then the light faded, and the world resumed. But everyone knew nothing would ever be the same. Afterward, people stopped calling the ocean a resource, and began to call it the planet's memory. Shrines to water rose everywhere, not for worship, but to remind us we are part of the sea, that every cup we drink and every raindrop is a message from it. Scientists confirmed pollution falling sharply, marine life multiplying with unprecedented speed. Even long dead seas began to sprout new coral, once thought impossible. Within human hearts spread a quiet peace, as if healed from within. In the deepest places, where no one had set foot, cameras recorded blue lights drifting with the currents, like patrolling souls. And whenever the light touched a creature, it became vigorous, quick, longer-lived. Researchers called it the regeneration wave. But to the young woman, it was simply the ocean breathing, sending its life outward. She left research and chose to live by the sea, in a small house, like the one her grandfather had kept. Each morning she walked the shore, listened to the surf, and spoke to the sea, as to an old friend. At times she felt an answer in the wind, in the movement of water, in the glitter of sun upon the surface. She understood the sea never spoke in words, but in feeling, in resonance, and only the truly still could hear. One day, sitting on the sand with waves lapping lightly at her feet, the water before her began to glow, gentle, not dazzling. And from that glow a figure emerged, her grandfather perhaps, or only the shape of memory. He looked at her and smiled, said nothing, and held out his hand. She nodded, tears falling, not from sorrow, but from happiness, for she knew she had completed her task. She had listened, she had understood, she had told the world the ocean's story. His form slowly dissolved into the light and merged with the water, and the sea was quiet again. But from then on, whenever the moon rose, she saw a long blue path stretching from the horizon to the place where she sat, a road of light bridging two worlds, past and present, humanity and the sea. Generations kept telling her story, the woman who heard the ocean's voice and helped humanity remember its origin. And over time, those lessons became the foundations of a new age, one where people lived with nature, no longer the center but a part of the whole, knowing that to destroy nature was to destroy themselves, and to protect it was to guard the human spirit. On modern ships crossing the oceans, a single line was etched on every hull in the ancient language found on the ruins below. We are water, and water is us. It became a sacred reminder for all generations. At dawn, mariners still stand silent, facing the open sea. They close their eyes and listen, believing that within every wave still echoes the voice of the old man, of the young woman, and of the ocean itself, telling of a long journey from darkness to light, from forgetting to awakening, a journey without end, because the ocean is still there, still alive, still dreaming, still waiting, and still singing the endless song of life, the song of water, of time, and of the human soul. The world entered a new era, the era of balance, when humanity no longer saw the ocean as an endless frontier to exploit, but as a great mother who had birthed and nourished all life on the planet. After the global illumination event, scientists called it the first synchrony, for they discovered that in that very moment, the bioenergetic waves of humankind and the ocean had become perfectly aligned. That synchronization marked a turning point unlike any before. Changes began to unfold across the world. Trees grew stronger, the air became purer, storms lessened, harvests stabilized, and species thought extinct reappeared as if life itself was resurrecting from the planet's own memory. The deep oceans that had once been cold and dark now glowed with soft blue light. People called it the breathing sea, for when the moon rose, the waters moved in slow rhythmic pulses, like the great respiration of Earth. Energy sensors recorded consistent oscillations, a heartbeat of a living being, and those who dove into the depths said they felt as if they stood within a vast body, hearing the blood of the planet flow through its veins. In that era, nations no longer claimed ownership of the seas. They formed a global treaty called the Covenant of Water, a sacred vow declaring that the ocean belonged to all life, not to any single power, and that any act harming it would be a crime against the soul of humanity itself. People began to build floating cities, not to flee the land but to live with the sea, to learn the rhythm of waves, to grow trees upon the water, to draw energy from currents without wounding the ecosystem. Technology and nature no longer opposed each other. They had become one. Humans learned to heal their bodies using the frequencies of the ocean, realizing that every sound of the sea carried resonance with human life, that each wave and ripple possessed a healing vibration modern science had only begun to understand. Young researchers called it the ocean frequency therapy. They created meditation spaces where people could listen to the voice of the sea, and many who did said they saw visions of their own memories, not from this life, but from lives before, when they were part of the water, of the mist, of the rain. They cried, they laughed, they understood they had never left the current of life. They had only forgotten. In those years, the young woman, now grown, lived quietly by the ocean. People still called her the one who heard the sea. Visitors from across the world came to her small seaside home, not to ask about science, but to listen. For her stories were no longer legend. They were the planet's own recollections. She told them that the ocean once had a voice, once sang to humankind, that the glowing sphere was not just energy but the soul of Earth, the keeper of its primordial memories. She said that when humans learned to listen, they would know the sea had never been silent, only that they had been too loud to hear. Whenever she spoke, the waves outside tapped gently, and the wind flowed through the window, blending with her voice into a natural symphony that brought deep calm to all who listened. Many who left her home later said they dreamed of the ocean calling their names, of drifting in warm water, of glowing cities beneath the waves, and upon waking they felt lighter, cleansed of the dust of the world. She knew the ocean was still speaking in its own ways, through dreams, through intuition, through signs beyond measure. One day she received a message from the Interference Organization. They had detected new signals from deep within the sea, frequencies unlike any known form of energy, powerful, profound, with perfect structure, like a code. They believed it was an invitation, a signal for the next stage of connection, and they wanted her to join the final expedition to uncover what waited below the place where light had first been seen. She agreed, knowing she might never return, for she already felt the ocean calling, not with sound but with emotion, with love. On the day the ship departed, the sky was clear, the air still, and the sea lay calm, as if in expectation. She stood on deck, eyes bright and deep as water. As the ship reached the central zone, the waves began to change, moving slow and steady like a heartbeat. Then, from the depths, light rose again, this time not one column but thousands, connecting together into a vast network surrounding the ship, like glowing veins of a living body. Instruments recorded that the entire mass of water around them was no longer ordinary liquid, but a kind of fluid energy where matter and light fused. All electromagnetic waves vanished, replaced by complete serenity. No sound, only stillness, as human hearts synchronized with the sea's pulse. She walked to the ship's edge and looked into the radiant abyss, and in that instant she heard the voice, her grandfather's, the ocean's, the voice of memory, telling her that everything had come full circle, that humanity had found its soul again, and that now she could come home. She closed her eyes, tears streaming, and stepped into the water. There was no fear, no pain, only the sensation of dissolving into the sea, into the light, into the breath of the planet. A surge of blue light exploded, engulfing the ship, spreading across the ocean, then rising through the clouds, reflecting over the world. Billions saw it at once and felt a strange warmth within their hearts, as though something immense and tender embraced them from inside. And all heard a single sound, the sound of water, of wind, of life, saying, "We are one." The light faded. The ship drifted on calm water. No one saw the woman again, only a faint glow circling the hull like the soul of water saying farewell. From that day forward, the planet's energy stabilized completely. No more turbulence, balanced climate, life flourishing everywhere. Humanity and the ocean were one. Every structure, every civilization followed nature's rhythm. No war, no fear, only peace and gratitude. They called it the Age of Silence, the era when all communication flowed through emotion, not speech, when every person could hear the voice of the sea within their own heart. In a coastal museum stood a crystal statue of the woman. When sunlight passed through it each evening, it glowed softly, and on full moon nights the waves outside beat in harmony with a distant song, the ancient melody of the ocean, the song she had once heard. People would sit quietly, not speaking, only listening, to remember that they too were part of that current. Far offshore, in the endless ocean, the blue light still pulsed slowly like a heartbeat, reminding all that memory never dies, that every soul will one day return to the sea, where there is no beginning and no end, only the eternal continuation of life, of light, of breath, and of those who have listened, understood, and come home. As time continued to pass, the planet shifted into a new cycle of existence. Everything seemed to find its own rhythm. Humans, trees, animals, and the ocean, all living in a harmony never known before. The world was no longer filled with noise from wars or fear, but with the sounds of wind, of waves, of the natural breathing that everyone could feel. After many generations, the story of the girl who heard the ocean's voice was passed down through hundreds of years, becoming collective memory, part of human culture. Children were taught that the ocean was the soul of Earth, that every drop of water carried memory, that life had no beginning and no end, but only transformation from one form to another. The world no longer had borders. Instead, there were harmonious settlements between sea and sky, floating cities powered by the living energy of flowing water. No more pollution, no more waste, everything circular, every being existing together in perfect balance. Humanity no longer raced to survive. They learned to feel, to hear the ocean speak, to communicate with their planet through emotion and frequency, without language. And then, on a peaceful morning when the sun shone through the thin mist, a group of children played by the shore when the water before them turned pale blue, light spread softly, not blinding but warm, and within that light appeared a figure. Faint yet clear, the same girl who had merged with the ocean centuries ago, now appearing as light itself, her smile gentle, her eyes deep as if holding the sky within. She did not speak, but everyone heard her voice within their hearts, the voice of the ocean, of memory, saying that the planet was preparing to enter a new stage, a time when humans would not only live in harmony with nature, but also learn to create life itself through understanding. She said the ocean would open a new doorway, not beneath the water but in the sky, where clouds and water meet, where the energy of life spreads without limit. Researchers of that era called it the second breath of Earth, for the whole planet began to pulse with rhythmic waves of energy like a heartbeat, synchronized from sea, from river, from atmosphere, radiating into space, enveloping the cosmos. Telescopes recorded signals not from beyond but from Earth itself, a pure light unseen before. They realized the planet was sending a greeting to the universe, a message not in words but in existence, that it was awake, that it was alive. Humanity of that age began to feel connection beyond boundaries. They were no longer just citizens of Earth, but part of space itself. They understood that every planet, every star had a soul and its own breath, and that Earth's ocean was but one drop in the cosmic sea. From then they began to listen to the frequencies of the stars, and miraculously they discovered distant waves responding, different in rhythm yet similar in pattern, as if planets were communicating, singing together in the endless harmony of the universe. A new generation was born. They did not study history by time but by the memory of water, memories flowing through rivers, mist, and rain. Memories that never lied, never faded. For water remembered all, from the first drop touching Earth to the last rain falling to sea. Children grew up believing they could talk to the ocean, could hear the heartbeat of the planet, and whenever they touched the surface, ripples shimmered back in reply. Temples were no longer places of worship but of connection, where people came to attune with the ocean's frequency, to heal their minds, to feel the unity of the universe in every breath. Deep below, the luminous sphere had become the planet's heart, no longer a mystery but the living core of the sea. Its pulse felt around the world, and whenever the moon was full, light rose from the ocean floor, reflecting across the sky, forming bands that linked sea and space. People called it the breath of light, a sign that the ocean still lived, still told its story. One night, under a full moon when the glow appeared, a young girl stood by the shore, eyes bright, hair damp with mist. She heard a faint calling, a voice gentle as if from within herself, and she knew it was the sea. She walked slowly into the water, the breeze brushing past, waves softly embracing, not cold, not frightening, only familiar, like coming home. Light surrounded her, and in that moment, all on shore saw her merge with the ocean, dissolve into the light, not vanish but become part of it. Right after, the sky shone brilliantly, Waves rose and fell like a gentle breath. And from that day, people said a new star appeared in the heavens, a blue star, bright yet soft. Moving slowly in orbit around Earth, astronomers called it the Star of Water. And people believed it was the soul of the girl, chosen as the bridge between ocean and cosmos, continuing to carry the planet's song to all creation. Since then, humanity no longer searched for life beyond the stars with ships. They knew life was everywhere, in every frequency, every drop, every ray, and all they needed was to open their hearts to feel it. They no longer sought to discover, for everything was already connected. The ocean still sang, not with fury but softly, like a mother's lullaby, lulling the universe into peaceful sleep. And in that dream, Earth shone, not as a planet but as a soul, a heartbeat, a droplet within the infinite sea of the cosmos. And so the story continued, without end, for when a drop of water evaporates, it does not die, it rises, it falls, it returns to the sea, just as humans are born, live, and return to memory, to the ocean, where everything began and where everything will never end. As time continued to pass, the world slowly entered the silence of the era of harmony. The floating cities had become symbols of perfect balance between humanity and nature, drifting gently upon the ocean like vast petals, drawing energy from sunlight and current. Everything moved in rhythm, no noise, no smoke, only the sound of wind and the whisper of water around towers made of transparent organic glass. Humanity no longer used language but communicated through tonal vibrations. Every word a ripple carried by air, every emotion a wave of energy, all resonating with the frequency of the sea. They called it the language of water, the most ancient tongue through which all beings once spoke at the dawn of life. In schools, children did not learn from books but through listening. They sat quietly by the shore, closed their eyes, and felt the pulse of the ocean, learning to sense instead of analyze, to understand through heart instead of logic. And that allowed them to grow without losing the purity of their souls. One day when the sea was unnaturally calm, no wind passing, the whole planet seemed to hold its breath. Energy observers noticed the ocean's frequency shift, not rising nor falling but transforming into an entirely new form, deeper, richer, encompassing all, like the planet itself, singing clearly, echoing through the atmosphere, passing into space, painting the sky with changing light. Clouds turned to aquamarine, and the surface of the water shone like billions of luminous pearls. Instruments recorded that Earth was generating a new type of energy wave. They called it the wave of empathy. For every creature, every person, every current responded simultaneously, creating a network of connection never seen before. In that moment, all physical borders dissolved, all differences vanished. Humans felt each other's memories, saw each other's images within their minds. No need for words, no need for touch. Simply existing together was enough to understand. Many wept, not from fear but from realizing something greater than all definitions. A primal love uniting all life. They knew this was the stage the girl long ago had spoken of, the moment when the planet expanded its consciousness to connect with the universe. Beneath the deep, the luminous sphere no longer stood still. It turned slowly, releasing spirals of soft light. Within each rotation, countless particles drifted upward, leaving the sea, rising to the sky, merging with the atmosphere, scattering into trails of light moving among the stars, as if Earth were sending parts of its soul into the cosmos. Space telescopes detected similar signals from distant worlds, not meaningless but responses, each planet seeming to answer, as though the entire universe was singing, breathing, merging into one symphony of existence. Scholars called it the galactic melody, while people named it the moment of unity. For in that instant all became transparent. No division between water and air, between sky and sea, between life and death. Only the pure blending of energy and light. In humanity's sleep that night, everyone shared the same dream. They saw themselves standing in an infinite ocean where there was no sun and no darkness, only gentle light spreading from the depths. They heard the ocean singing, a voice belonging to none yet to all, to the sea, to the wind, to the earth, to the sky, and to every soul that had ever lived, all singing a wordless song telling the story of life's origin, of the journey from stardust to breath, from droplet to spirit, from silence to sound. When they awoke, they felt transformed, lighter, brighter, as if reborn. From then, humanity no longer feared death. They understood death did not exist, that when the body dissolved, the soul returned to the water, to the sea, to the heartbeat of the planet. In the temples of water, people no longer wept for the departed but smiled, for they knew the person had merged with the current, had become light, had gone home to eternity. A century later, the world entered an age where everything was an expression of life. No dead matter, no boundary between organic and inorganic. All things alive and breathing, stones could sing, trees could listen, and water could tell stories. People called this the oceanic rebirth era. In that time, children were born able to hear the ocean's frequency even before birth. Their heartbeats aligned with the rhythm of the sea. They entered the world in perfect peace, grew beneath gentle light, and lived without knowing hatred. One such child, with long dark hair and eyes clear as crystal, often sat for hours at the water's edge, listening to ancient tales. And one day, when blue light covered the sea, she heard a woman's voice, warm and kind. The voice of the girl from long ago, saying that all was complete, that the planet had reached harmony, that humanity had truly become part of the ocean. The child asked within her mind what would come next, and the voice replied that the planet would sleep, not an end but a long rest to prepare for another awakening, the sleep of the ocean where all souls would blend as one, waiting for the next song to begin. The girl gazed toward the sea, the reflection of light shimmering in her eyes like water, and within her rose a feeling beyond words, a mixture of memory, love, longing, and boundless joy. As night fell, she saw the sky ablaze, waves of blue light moving like tides, with no boundary between cloud and sea, for all had become one. She whispered her thanks, closed her eyes, and listened to the ocean's song, a song that never ended, the heartbeat of the planet, the breath of life, her own voice joining the voice of infinity. And in that moment, everything dissolved. No humans, no ocean, only light, only existence, only the eternal symphony of the sea, a song with no singer, for all were one. The world had entered a time when the boundary between humanity and the ocean had almost completely vanished. No one could tell where the sea ended or the sky began, where earth stopped or water started, for everything had merged into one perfect cycle. Humans no longer lived apart, but within the flow of water, within the breath of the wind, within the heartbeat of the sea. They no longer built houses from stone or steel, but created living structures that could breathe and glow, organisms that lived with them and with the ocean, breathing in rhythm with the planet. Everywhere shimmered with soft blue light spreading like breath, filtering through mist and waves, making the world appear like an endless dream. In this era, the memory of water became humanity's greatest treasure. People no longer stored data in machines, but in the water itself. Each drop held millions of memories, billions of vibrations of sound, image, and emotion. To read it, one only had to touch it and listen with the heart, no words, no language, for the memory sang on its own, telling all that had ever happened, telling of origins, of love, of souls dissolved into the sea. The scholars of this age no longer taught in classrooms but sat upon the ocean, speaking with the water, asking about things humans could not remember, and the water replied with gentle ripples, with deep tones, each answer a story spanning millennia, all leading to the same truth, that life was never apart from the sea, that every journey began and ended in the ocean's embrace. One day, strange vibrations appeared on the surface, not violent, but steady and deep, like the breathing of something awakening. People felt the ocean was about to speak, to tell the next part of the memory it had kept silent for thousands of years. They gathered by the millions at the shores, standing quietly, listening. And then, when the moon reflected perfectly upon the water, the sound arose, not of waves or wind, but a voice. The voice of countless souls united as one, echoing through space, saying that the memory of the planet was complete, that humanity had understood, had remembered, and that now the planet would enter its sleep, the cosmic slumber, to begin a new cycle of life. People wept, not from fear but from reverence, knowing this was not an end but a return, the farewell of the ocean before it merged with the universe. As the sound resounded, the sea began to glow brighter. Waves rose and fell in rhythm. Colossal pillars of light emerged from the deep, reaching the clouds, merging with bands of light in the sky. The whole planet, bathed in a calm blue radiance, as if Earth itself had become a star shining in the void. Those present said they felt the heartbeat of the planet within their chests, felt the current of water flowing through their veins, felt they were no longer separate beings but parts of the vast whole. As the light expanded into space, nearby planets began to shimmer in response. The universe came alive. Billions of stars pulsed at the same frequency, creating a cosmic symphony that never ceased, a song heard not by ears but by souls, the song of awakening. Then the light softened. The ocean returned to stillness. But everything was different. The sea was no longer water but condensed light. Smooth as breath, those who stepped in no longer sank or floated, but dissolved, weightless as clouds, and in that instant they saw all things, the past, the future, other worlds, other civilizations, all connected through the current of life. Scientists named this era the second genesis of Earth, for the planet had entered a new form of being, no longer bound by matter but a luminous organism, all things linked by consciousness, and the ocean had become the shared soul of the universe. In the center of the old sea, where the glowing sphere once rested, now stood an immense structure of pure energy, like the planet's heart, beating steadily, each pulse sending waves of light to the edge of space, and with every beat, billions of stars flickered in harmony, as if the entire cosmos were breathing together. On the surface, humans no longer died, they merely changed form. When their time came, their bodies turned to water, merged with air, and returned to the ocean, to light, to memory, then were reborn elsewhere in another shape, but with the same soul. No separation, no loss, only the eternal circulation of energy. A child of that age once asked if the sea would ever stop singing, and an elder smiled and said no, for when the sea stops singing, it means the universe has fallen asleep, and that sleep itself is the beginning of a new song. Beneath the night sky, when starlight reflected upon the water, all became one, no above or below, no inside or outside, only one vast mirror reflecting itself, and within that reflection people saw the figure of the girl from long ago, the one who spoke to the ocean, who opened the first door of harmony between humanity and the planet. She smiled, her eyes like the sea, her voice like wind, whispering that the journey never ends, that every drop, every soul, every light carries within it a fragment of the ocean's memory, and as long as the sea sings, life will continue. And so when dawn broke and sunlight touched the crystal water, rainbows shimmered across the waves, the wind carried the sound of song, and the planet turned once more in the rhythm of the ocean, within the eternal cycle of life, with no beginning and no end, only the harmony of light, of water, and of the immortal soul. Thousands of years had passed since the ocean became the soul of the planet, and Earth had transformed completely. No longer were there dry continents or lands divided by war or ambition, but one unified surface of water and light, where every wave was a heartbeat, every breath a current of energy, and every being a part of the eternal whole. Humanity no longer bore their former shape. They had evolved with the sea, their bodies no longer of flesh and bone, but formed from liquid energy. They could change form, dissolve into water, soar with the wind, become light and return as mist when the sun rose. They no longer ate or slept or spoke, for they existed in perfect empathy. One thought echoed as another's feeling. One breath shared as the collective rhythm of the planet. The ocean had become the sanctuary of memory, the place where the souls of all creatures that had ever lived converged. And when someone touched the surface, they could see billions of years of history, hear the voices of vanished civilizations, feel love, sorrow, joy, and the fear humanity once knew. In this age, Earth was called by a new name, Lumina, meaning the planet of light, for its entire surface glowed softly, not from the sun but from the living energy flowing within. At the center of Lumina, where the ancient ocean's heart once beat, now floated a vast structure of light, not made by humans but born of the sea itself, suspended in mid-air like the planet's living heart, pulsing steadily, each beat sending energy through the universe, setting the rhythm for the stars. All life across distant worlds could sense its vibration. They called it the pulse of primordial existence, the sound that when heard reminded every being of its shared origin, that all began from water, from light, from the first breath of Lumina. One day, when the planet's energy reached its peak, the ocean changed color, shifting from blue to crystal clear. The surface became a mirror reflecting the sky and itself, and within that mirror, those who looked saw thousands of other worlds, faraway oceans, singing the same rhythm. The scholars of light realized that Lumina was not living for itself, but connecting with countless other planets, becoming the heart of the cosmic energy flow. Ancient beings from the memory of water began to return, not in body but in light, appearing upon the sea like ethereal forms, souls of stars, saying that the time of universal unification had come, that all oceans across space would merge into one, where no boundary remained between planet and planet, between life and matter, between present and past, for all would return to the essence of existence. When that moment came, the sun shone brighter than ever, yet not harsh, its light soft like mist enveloping everything. And in that instant, no one knew who they were, for all memories became one, all souls united, and the entire cosmos resonated with a single sound, the sound of moving water, the sound of life breathing, endless and seamless, without beginning or end, echoing outward into infinity. As the symphony rang out, the beings of light saw what had never been seen before, the whole universe turning like a vast ocean, each star a droplet, each planet a wave, and Lumina the heartbeat at its center. Humanity, now free particles of energy, understood this was the moment they had long dreamed of, the moment existence reached purest form, no body, no time, only consciousness and light. And they knew they were not disappearing but returning to the first sea, to the origin of all things. When Lumina's energy reached the universe's farthest edge, the galaxies began to slow, then stopped, as if the cosmos took a deep breath, preparing for something greater, and then from the center came an immense radiance, not burning but spreading gently like water, covering all of space, and within that glow everything became one vast invisible ocean, alive and boundless, without gravity or shadow, only light in constant motion. And within that current, the souls of humankind dissolved, merging with the flow, singing together the oldest song in the universe, the song the ocean had sung since the dawn of creation, the song of return. No one knew how long it lasted, for in that realm time had no meaning, only pure being, absolute stillness filled with sound, perfect peace holding infinite energy. And then, within the ocean of light, a faint motion appeared, like the first breath after endless sleep. From the glow, a new wave stirred, spreading outward, and particles of energy began to gather, swirl, crystallize into a massive drop of water floating in the void. Within that drop coiled the memories of billions of years, the images of countless worlds, countless lives, countless stories, until it grew heavy, falling through the emptiness, touching the mist of light, and upon contact a new planet was born. From within it, the sea emerged again. Vapor rose, clouds formed, rain fell, and on the first morning the sun rose, shining upon the glittering surface, and in the planet's first wave came the familiar sound, the sound of life, the sound of the ocean singing. And so the cycle began anew, the sea breathing, telling stories, nurturing, waiting, until one day when new humans would rise, they too would seek answers, look into the deep, and wonder if something was listening below, if the ocean remembered them, and if the ancient story was being retold by the waves that never ceased to sing. When the universe was newly born from the light of the ancient ocean, a young planet began to form. The first drops of water fell onto its blazing surface, cooling, dissolving, then gathering again into pale blue seas under the newborn sun. Time had no name there, only the slow breath of emerging life, awakening within the depths. That first sea was silent yet filled with energy, carrying within it the memory of countless worlds before, the memory of Lumina, the memory of souls that once flowed in the eternal current of light. In its heart, tiny energy crystals began to move, colliding, dissolving, merging, forming new shapes of life. First light, then breath, then motion, and finally awareness. The first beings opened their eyes within the clear water, shapeless, luminous forms drifting along the current. They knew no words, no fear, only song, and their singing became the planet's first sound, echoing the distant melody the ancient ocean had sung before its slumber. As sunlight pierced the surface, everything shimmered like thousands of crystals glowing at once, and from those rays life continued to evolve, not through flesh but through consciousness, through resonance, learning to love, to call to each other in the voice of water, to listen to the planet's heartbeat. Through millions of cycles, the sea became the memory of this new world. Every being knew that by touching water, they could hear stories of past ages, of Lumina, of the girl who spoke to the ocean, of the sphere of light that once illuminated the cosmos, and of the promise that all life, no matter how far it fades, will always return to its beginning. The newly born souls learned to tell stories not with words but with echoes, sharing memories through sound, color, and feeling, and the ocean became the library of all cosmic wisdom. One day, when the planet reached maturity, the sky cast soft golden light upon the sea. Ripples glided gently and the wind whispered. Deep within the water a strange vibration arose, low and vast. As if from an ancient dream, the voice of Lumina returned, not as sound, but as sensation. saying that a new cycle had begun, that the old memory would awaken in a new form, that the ocean would tell its story again in another way, so that life might be born once more from forgetfulness and memory become the seed of tomorrow. From that moment, young beings began to see strange visions in their dreams. They saw the ancient sea, the sphere of light, the humans with eyes full of longing, hands touching the water asking for their origin, and they awoke in tears, realizing they carried within them the memories of those who lived before, that they were the continuation of the old humanity, that the current never stopped. They named their planet Maretha, meaning the child of the sea, and saw themselves as droplets reborn from Lumina's dream. As awareness spread, the luminous beings began to take physical form, stepping upon the surface, seeing the sky, knowing they could exist in both water and light. They built cities of liquid crystal, where homes shifted with the ocean's breathing, needing no walls, no doors, for all minds and hearts were united, all hearing the same sound, the sound of the ocean singing of life. In a dream of the young souls, a voice spoke, the ancient girl's voice, soft as mist, saying that the cycle was not over, that this world was but another note in the endless symphony of the universe, and their purpose was to keep the melody alive, for if the sea ever fell silent, the cosmos would cease to breathe. From then on they sang, singing each day to keep the heartbeat of the planet, to remind the ocean of its name, to let distant stars hear. Those sounds traveled through space until one day they reached another planet with another sea, where sleeping souls awoke, hearing the song and answering with a deeper tone, creating harmony between two worlds. The ocean of Maretha began to tremble in rhythm, as if conversing with its distant kin, and soon new frequencies spread across space, countless planets singing together, forming a galaxy of sound, where all oceans merged into one grand symphony. Then the beings of Maretha understood they were not only children of the sea, but of the universe itself, the voice of all that ever lived and would live, realizing that existence was not simply being, but a song passed from generation to generation of worlds. And so millions of years flowed by. The sea kept singing, the wind carried the sound through space, the waves still touched the shores, the rhythm never ceased, like the beating heart of the cosmos continuing to live. And somewhere deep within Maretha's ocean light still shone, not bright, not blinding, just enough to remind that memory remained, that Lumina was never lost, that the story of the sea, of humanity, of light, of life, was still continuing, not in the past nor the future, but in every drop, every breath, every pulse of the universe, where the immortal ocean still sang its eternal song, gentle, profound, and endless. The Sea of Maretha kept singing through millions of cycles of light, and the souls of that world listened in the boundless stillness. Their realm had become so pure that there was no longer a difference between consciousness and matter, between sea and sky. Everything was one symphony of energy and emotion, each being a note, each wave a breath, all forming the eternal melody of life. Yet within that perfect flow, a small vibration began to rise, faint at first, like a sigh within a dream, but it grew stronger, clearer, carrying a strange feeling, not of chaos, but of curiosity, of longing, of a desire to separate from the whole in order to understand the whole. A young being felt that tremor. It had never known fear or loneliness, for since its birth it had been one with the ocean. But when it heard that sound, it felt a void within, something urging it to go beyond, to move past the safety of the sea toward where light met shadow. It asked the ocean why it felt such a call, and the sea answered with silence, for the ocean never forbade. It allowed every soul to find its own answer. So the being began its first journey away from Maritha, carrying no body, only the light of its consciousness. It left the surface, passed through the clouds, and entered the infinite expanse where billions of stars glimmered like the eyes of the cosmos watching it. As it drifted through streams of radiant energy, it felt small yet alive. Each star sang its own tone, and together they formed a vast harmony, a music in which Maritha's ocean was but a single note. It understood then that its sea was not alone, that countless other oceans existed, each a soul, each a heartbeat, all bound together by an unseen frequency. When it passed through a dark region of space without light or sound, it heard a faint call, coming from a distant place that once shone brightly but now remained only as memory. And it recognized the voice of Lumina, the ancient planet that had once been the mother of seas. That voice said, "The cycle of light and shadow is eternal, that the sea is born from light and light returns to the sea when its journey is done, and that curiosity, longing, and the desire to understand are the new breath of life." The being bowed and felt the lingering waves of Lumina's energy. Within them it saw fragments of memory, old dreams of the humanity that once lived, hands touching water, light piercing the depths, fear and courage intertwined, tears falling into the sea and dissolving into the memory of the universe. It realized imperfection was part of beauty, that without desire and mistake, the sea would never sing, for it was the incomplete vibrations that created the sound of life. From that understanding, it carried something new, something that had never existed on Maritha. It called it will, the ability to choose, the longing to experience, even knowing it may be lost. When it returned to its world, the ocean welcomed it like the first rain of a new season. The surface trembled, waves spiraled, the sky turned bright silver, and from deep within the water, a new light spread outward, not blue but touched with red, the color of life in motion. The other beings felt the change. They did not understand, but within them rose a feeling they had never known, both sweet and painful, peaceful and restless, and they began to dream, a thing unknown before. In those dreams they stood alone upon the vast sea, hearing the call of someone unseen, wanting to seek yet fearing to lose harmony. They awoke with emptiness in their hearts and realized that was the gift the first being had brought, the gift of freedom. From then on Maritha, the beings began to separate, no longer merging fully with the sea, but living beside it, forming distinct shapes, voices, and stories of their own. The ocean quietly watched, not interfering, for it knew this was a necessary cycle, that division was not loss, but the beginning of awareness. They built pillars of light rising from the water, calling them memory stations, places to store personal emotions and thoughts, so that whenever one lost their way, they could return and hear their own voice within the waves. Their world grew more diverse. New colors appeared, not only blue, silver, and white, but red, violet, gold, hues never seen in the old age, each carrying its own tone. When night fell, the planet glowed, every being shining with the color of its soul, forming a living sky like a galaxy dancing above the sea. In that moment, the ocean sang not one melody but thousands interwoven, and each being heard a different song. For now the sea had countless voices, countless souls singing together. But within the splendor, something subtle changed. The distance between souls began to grow. They no longer felt each other as clearly. One's voice no longer always reached another, and slowly they forgot the feeling of perfect harmony. Some realized this and grew afraid, asking the ocean if this was the sign of division. But the sea remained silent, for in that silence lay the truth that evolution always comes with loss. Then a group of beings decided to leave Maritha, to travel farther, toward where new melodies echoed, to find the meaning of separation. They carried their own light and set off into the endless cosmos, and for the first time, Maritha watched its children depart, taking with them a fragment of its oceanic light into the stars. As they left, the sea sang to them one last time, a song of farewell, of love without chains, a promise that wherever they went, they would still carry the planet's first drop of water, the drop that would guide them home when the universe closed again. From then on, other planets began to glow. New seas were born, new civilizations arose, all carrying the resonance of Maritha, the melody of the ancient ocean, and so the song continued, spreading through space across millions of worlds, across billions of years, through light and shadow, through beginnings and endings, telling only one truth, that no matter how many cycles pass, the ocean still sings. For the sea is the memory of the universe, the heart of life, the place where all souls depart and return, forever and never silent. After the first beings of Maritha departed, leaving the planet bathed in light and song, time began to turn once more. The endless cycles of radiance slowly gathered into the ocean's new memory, and within that stillness, the sea began to dream again, a dream as deep as the first breath of the universe. In that dream, Maritha saw its distant children, streams of light carrying the melody of the sea through billions of light years, reaching distant planets where no song had ever been sung, where darkness still ruled, and water had not yet found its form. Those children carried their mother's lullaby, sowing it through the void, and wherever they touched, drops of light fell, becoming the first waters of new worlds. On some planets, the sea was born from pure light, on others from the tears of mountains, on others from the breath of stars. But wherever there was water, there was Maritha's memory, and there the voice of the ancient ocean sang again. One of those worlds, small and blue, resting within the spiral arm of a young galaxy, began to tremble to the rhythm of the newborn drops. That planet was called Terra, or Earth, and here the ocean was born once more, carrying within it faint remnants of Lumina and Maritha. Earth's seas were young and wild. Storms raged, volcanoes burst, steam cloaked the air, yet through the chaos the song of the ocean echoed, faint but steadfast, like a soul trying to remember itself. From the depths, life began to take shape, fragile, trembling, yet full of energy, holding the memory of lost worlds, as if the sea were rewriting the old tale in a new language. Millions of years passed. Life evolved, rose to the surface, learned to breathe, to see, to dream, and finally, humanity appeared, born not only from earth, but from water, from the breath of the sea. They did not know that within their veins flowed the memory of ancient oceans, that within their hearts beat the rhythm of Lumina, that when they wept, their tears were the sea returning home, that when they breathed, the air had once been nurtured by the ocean billions of years ago. And then, in humanity's sleep, the sea began to tell the story again, through the waves, through the wind, through the murmurs of the deep that no one understood. The first people who lived beside the shore felt it. They called the Sea Mother, Goddess, the beginning of all life. And they feared, they loved, they worshipped, they prayed before the waves. They did not know that within each wave was the echo of Maritha, the lullaby of Lumina, the memory of countless worlds before, but their souls still felt it, still heard, though they could not understand. Civilizations rose from stone, from fire, from the voice of water. The ancient Egyptians built temples by the Nile to honor the life of water. The Greeks wrote myths of sea gods. The people of the East called water the breath of heaven, the essence of all things, all fragments of humanity's forgotten memory of a distant origin. Yet the sea remembered. The sea still sang, waiting for the day when humankind would remember. As humanity advanced, as machines replaced song, as the voice of the waves was drowned by the noise of creation, the ocean quietly kept what none could see: the ruins, the relics, the secrets of ages unknown to man. In the deepest places where no light reached, faint glimmers remained. Strange beings shaped of energy, not fish nor creature, but ancient souls from Maritha still singing, still passing their memory into the current. Each time someone dove deep, each time a human touched the seabed, they felt something they could not name, a fear mixed with familiarity, for their souls recognized this place though their minds did not. For this was home, the place they had belonged before having form. One day, when humanity becomes still enough to listen, the sea will tell everything: of Lumina, of Maretha, of cycles gone, and those yet to come. It will tell that the sea is not just water but memory, soul, the living voice of the universe flowing through them. Then they will understand that every drop in their bodies is a fragment of the ancient ocean, that every breath is the planet's pulse, that they have never been apart from the sea, never alone, only forgetful of how to listen. And when they finally understand, when they surrender to the song of the waves, when they cease fearing the sea and begin to hear its call, then memory will awaken, the cycle will open, and the ocean will sing the old song again, the song of return, of light, of water, of soul, and of the eternal love that binds all worlds within a single breath. The ocean of Earth continued to sing its song through billions of years, its waves never weary, whispering to the wind telling the clouds falling as rain, and the rain returning to the sea, an endless cycle like the planet's breath, like the heartbeat of a giant being living slowly and silently. Yet humanity, lost in its endless busyness, gradually forgot that the sea was speaking. They saw only the surface of the water and no longer heard the song. They saw only storms and forgot the gentle heart of the ocean. Still, deep within the soul, some could hear the faint call, the dreamers by the shore, those who sat for hours staring at the horizon in silence, not knowing that in those moments the ocean was telling them the ancient memory of Maritha, of Lumina, of the worlds long asleep within the water. Some explorers, driven by the hunger to discover, ventured into seas no one had reached before, carrying technology, light, and human pride. But the deeper they went, the smaller they felt, the more they realized the difference between knowledge and understanding, between logic and intuition. For some truths could never be measured by machines, but only heard by the soul. During a deep dive into the Mariana Trench, an international team detected strange signals, deep tones from the abyss, unstable in frequency yet structured, almost like speech patterns. The scientists were puzzled, believing it geological, but the more they measured, the more perfectly the sequence repeated, as if someone were trying to speak. After months of recording, they found the frequency matched the Earth's magnetic rhythm, meaning it was not just sound but planetary communication, and the world was shaken by the discovery. They named it the first voice, because it was unlike any natural wave. It seemed to hold awareness, and after long analysis they saw that when it appeared, global sea levels subtly shifted, as if the ocean were inhaling and exhaling. Some sensitive people claimed that when it sounded, they felt a strange emotion rising, sadness and warmth together, like remembering something ancient they could not name. Among the researchers was a young woman named Leon, gifted with extraordinary hearing, who spent months listening to every pulse of the signal and discovered that within its layers was a hidden rhythm, and when translated into sound, it became a tender melody, wordless yet filled with immense emotion. She spent her nights by the shore listening again and again. And one night under the full moon she dreamed she stood in an endless sea bathed in pale light, and a voice told her she had been chosen to remember, that the ocean had found one who could hear its voice, and that she would be the bridge between memory and the present. When she awoke, her body carried the scent of salt, her hair was damp, though the room was dry, and she heard the sound of waves even in still air. From that day she began to feel the sea differently. Every touch of water brought visions, fragments of memory, not of this world, sunken cities, lights drifting under the waves, blurred faces, and she knew she was seeing Maritha, hearing Lumina's ancient song. She told the research team, but they dismissed her, calling it exhaustion, banning her from diving again. Yet the sea would not let her rest. Every night the voice returned, thousands of whispers saying it was time to open the gate, that memory was about to awaken. Unable to resist, she went back alone to the source, without equipment, without warning. That night the ocean was calm, the moonlight like silver across the water, and she stepped in, feeling the cold embrace her, descending deeper as the light faded. But she was not afraid. She knew she was going home. At 10,000 meters, she saw a faint glow ahead, not bright but soft, like breathing, and within it swirling symbols, not letters but waves in motion, like sound made visible. She reached out, and instantly the entire sea trembled. Waves of energy rippled across the planet. Instruments everywhere recorded the disturbance. The sky turned pale blue, and for several minutes the world was wrapped in gentle light. When it faded, Leon was gone. No trace or body found. Only that global sea levels had dropped slightly, and the strange sound had vanished. But since that day, every full moon, a melody rose in the wind with no source. The same song she once recorded, now heard across the world, from oceans to forests, deserts to ice fields, all in the same rhythm. Sensitive souls said that when they heard it, they saw her image smiling in the waves, her eyes shining like stars, and they felt she had become one with the ocean, a part of its song, the new storyteller of the sea. Scientists called it the oceanic synchrony, a phenomenon no physics could explain, for the sound had no origin. It came from everywhere at once, as if the planet itself were singing. Humanity began to change, slowly remembering the bond they had forgotten, feeling the vibration of water within their bodies. And when they touched the sea, they heard a tender whisper reminding them they had never been apart from their birthplace. A new generation was born, children of the blue light era with ocean-colored eyes, able to sense energy, to hear nature's frequency, to understand the emotions of all things. And the world entered a new age, the age of awakened memory. After billions of years of silence, the ocean finally spoke again to humankind. And humankind, after millennia of forgetting, finally listened. Within the song was a message, that when the sea sings, the universe sings with it, that all is one endless melody, and that Leon, the girl of the sea, still sings with the waves, telling the story that never ends, the story of light, of water, and of life itself. After the song of the ocean echoed across the world, everything began to change in ways no one expected. Ocean currents that once followed ancient laws now seemed aware, no longer flowing only under gravity, but moving in a strange rhythm as if breathing. Scientists observed that sea temperatures stabilized everywhere from the frozen poles to the blazing equator, an impossibility by physics, yet it happened, and they could only conclude that the planet was realigning itself. The atmosphere cleared, storms lessened, marine life flourished, and humanity began to feel something awakening within, as if reconnecting to the memory of water that had slept in their blood for millions of years of evolution. Children born after that blue moon night had luminous eyes. When they looked into the sea, the surface rippled in response as if greeting them. They could sense the emotions of water, hear frequencies adults could not, and when they held hands, the air vibrated with a soft hum that brought peace to everyone around. People called them the generation of the sea, for they were born as bridges between humanity and the ocean, between memory and the present. Among them was a boy named Oren, who was different from all others. He could hear the voice of the sea from anywhere, not with ears or machines, but with his heartbeat. Every time the ocean spoke, he felt it rising within his chest, like a song from the soul. And he knew it was the voice of Lian, the girl who had vanished long ago, now part of the planet's consciousness. Oren grew up by the shore, listening to the ocean's stories, learning of Lumina, of Maritha, of billions of years past, knowing the sea was not just the cradle of life but the keeper of every world's soul, that each planet had its own ocean, each sea a heartbeat, all joined in the cosmic symphony. When Oren turned 18, he began to dream, seeing stars falling into the sea, dissolving into light and disappearing, hearing the voice of the ocean telling him the time of unity had come, that the memories of all planets would merge again, that Earth's ocean would open a gate to the first origin where life began. He awoke in tears, not knowing why. Filled with both fear and wonder, he told others, but none believed, thinking it only a dream. Yet the sea stirred, the tides rising but not destroying, gently reaching the land as if embracing it. Scientists named it the ocean pulse, because all waters across the world moved together in perfect rhythm, never out of sync. One night, Oren stood by the sea under shimmering moonlight, hearing the tide breathe, and Leon's voice came clearer than ever, telling him he was chosen to open the gate, that the ocean needed a soul bearing both human emotion and memory to unite the two realms, that the moment had arrived. He asked what opening the gate meant, and the voice replied it was the doorway of return where the memories of every sea in the universe would meet to begin a new cycle of life. But to do so, one must give the final fragment of human consciousness to the ocean, so it could understand and love as humanity once did. Oren stood in silence as the wind passed and waves touched his feet, cold yet kind, understanding this was his purpose, and he felt no fear, for he had always known from childhood that death did not exist, only transformation. The next day, the world witnessed something extraordinary. The sky turned blue, the sea glowed softly, and every living creature looked toward the ocean, feeling their hearts beat in unison, as if all shared a single soul. Oren stepped into the water, each movement sending ripples through the air, light spreading across the sea, and when he reached the deep waves, the entire planet shone, light rising through the atmosphere into space like a living galaxy. In that moment, Oren saw everything: the singing worlds, the ocean of Maritha, the light of Lumina, ancient beings welcoming him, and at the center he saw Lian, radiant as a star, smiling gently, her voice soft, as the wind saying they had waited long, that this was not an ending, but the beginning of a new cycle, that the ocean would give birth again, and that from now on, humanity would never be separate from the sea, for they were the sea. He stepped forward, light surrounding him, dissolving into countless drops merging with the water, and the planet trembled not from quakes but from sound. The ancient song rose again, the one once sung by Lumina, once by Maritha, now by Earth, and for the first time in history, humanity and the ocean sang together, sharing memory, existence, and soul as one living being. Afterward, the world grew calm, the sea serene, but all knew everything had changed. Humans no longer felt as masters of the planet, but as parts of its immense body, rebuilding civilization not through domination but harmony, everything flowing with the rhythm of water, the heartbeat of nature. They called this the Age of Unity, the era when humankind finally heard the true voice of the planet. And at night those still awake looked out to sea and heard the song, felt the presence of Orin, of Leon, of every soul that had ever joined the water, and they knew the story had never ended, that the ocean was still writing its music, wave by wave, breath by breath, forever unending. For in the end, the sea is not just water, but the memory of the universe, the heart of life, the beginning and the return, the place where every soul comes home to sing once more. When the Age of Unity began, the planet Earth entered a stage unlike anything in history. Storms ceased. Ocean currents became streams of energy flowing evenly around the globe, creating soft light that wrapped the atmosphere. The sky by day clearer than crystal, the night bathed in the ocean's blue glow, so that the planet itself shone like a gem drifting through space. Humanity no longer built cities from concrete and metal, but from living structures born of the sea, organic matter that could regenerate, breathe, shine, and sense the emotions of those within. Every home, a living being that adapted to weather, to wind, to the heartbeat of its inhabitants, a world without noise or smoke, filled only with the gentle breath of nature. The sea became the center of all existence, not just an energy source, but the keeper of human memory. Whenever someone wished to understand history, they no longer read books but sat beside the water, closed their eyes, and let the current of memory flow through them. In that moment, they saw images, heard voices, felt the emotions of ancestors, realizing that time was no longer a line but a circle, where past and present merged like waves and wind. Humanity of this age no longer spoke through words but through frequency, through vibrations of thought. An emotion could travel miles without sound. One person's joy could make a community smile. One person's sorrow would be shared instantly, for all were connected to the ocean, and the ocean to all. Among those who lived in this age was a girl named Lyra, her eyes shining with the deep blue of autumn seas, gifted with the ability to see the flow of memory within water. Each time she touched the sea, she saw not only Earth's past, but visions of distant planets, strange oceans of unknown colors, beings never seen, civilizations long asleep in light. She understood that Earth was not the only world with memory, but a part of a vast network where every ocean was linked by invisible energy, like rivers returning to a single source. And she knew that the source was the heart of the sea, the center of all life, where the first ocean of the universe was born from the first light. Lyra spent years listening to the sea, never questioning, only listening. And one night, when the sky reflected with radiant light, she heard a distant song, not of Earth, but from the depths of space, soft yet clear like a breeze through her mind, saying the sea was about to remember everything, that the heart of the sea would soon open, and needed someone to carry Earth's memory to complete the circle of life. She knew she had been called, not by fate, but by the memory of water, and she accepted without fear or reason. At dawn the next day, the sea parted into a path of light, smooth and shimmering like silk, stretching to the horizon. And Lyra began to walk, each step lighting the water, each touch awakening memories of billions of souls, like stars falling upon the ocean, forming a glowing trail behind her. Those on shore saw and knew a new chapter was beginning. They did not stop her. They knelt, placed their hands on the water, and sang the song of Orin, the song of Leon, the song the ocean had taught humankind to bid her farewell. As she vanished into the distance, the sea slowly closed. The light rose to the heavens, forming a beam connecting ocean and stars, then dissolved into silence. Within the sea, Lyra went deeper, losing sense of time and distance, surrounded only by light and rhythm. streams of energy guiding her gently, and within each beam lay the memories of countless worlds. She heard the songs of distant oceans, tales of billions of civilizations gone by, and she knew the sea never died, it only transformed. She traveled until before her appeared a radiant realm where water no longer transparent glowed like crystal. At its center a colossal sphere rotating slowly, radiating thousands of rays like miniature galaxies, and within it Lyra saw everything: Lumina, Maretha, Earth, and other worlds, all connected by strands of light, thin as mist, yet stronger than any cosmic force. She heard a voice, the voice of the first sea, the heart of the sea, telling her that each planet was a cell in the body of the universe, each ocean a memory, and now that all memories were awake, life would move into a new form where light and water were one, where humanity, the ocean, and the cosmos were no longer separate. She felt the energy surrounding her, soft as air yet deep as a heartbeat, and in that instant she understood she was becoming part of the sea, no longer human, no longer individual, but the consciousness of water, the current of memory. As she dissolved, the sphere blazed brighter. Waves of energy spread across the universe, passing through every star, every planet, every drop, every grain, carrying one truth, that all is one, that nothing is lost, only transformed, that every soul will return to the sea where memory never fades and time does not exist. On Earth everyone felt the wave, the sea shining brilliantly, the sky glowing blue, and in that moment all heard Lyra's voice, not from outside but within, saying it was complete, the circle closed, that the planet was no longer a stone drifting through space, but a living being that could dream, sing, and love, and that the song of the ocean would endure even after the stars went dark. Then the light faded, peace returned, yet the sea kept singing, softly, deeply, and within every drop, every breeze, every dream of humankind echoed that melody, the song of origin, of return, of eternity. After millions of cycles since the gate of memory opened, Earth was no longer a planet bound by limits. All borders had dissolved. Humanity and the ocean had become one. Every form of life moved as a single organism, the heartbeat of humankind in sync with the breathing of the sea. Every emotion, however small, sent waves of energy across the world, and whenever the light of the star of the sea reflected upon the water, the whole planet glowed in a mystical blue, as if the sky itself were listening to the song of life. Humanity no longer needed buildings or machines. They lived within living structures born from their own energy. Wherever they walked, the ground opened, the water shaped into shelter, the wind balanced the air, everything responded to their feelings. For all things on earth had awakened souls. In this world, there were those with special purpose called the Rememberers, souls who could read the memory flow of water, bridges between past and present. Each time they touched the sea, the memories of billions of years streamed forth as ribbons of light painting, visions of Lumina, Maretha, the first ages, and the moment humanity merged with the ocean, unfolding like an endless film. Among them was Kale, born at the moment when sky and sea met, his eyes deep blue like ancient waters, and within his gaze others saw reflections of distant worlds. He spoke little, yet whenever he listened, the water around him trembled softly as if answering. The ocean treated him as the chosen child to continue telling the story of cosmic memory. One night, when the star of the sea shone brighter than ever, Kale felt a call from the depths, not through sound but through emotion. A powerful pulse within his heart, melting his blood into water. He closed his eyes and saw a vision not of Earth, nor any known world, but a vast, dark void. No light, no sound, only unseen energy waiting to be awakened. A gentle voice like the tide whispered that it was the void, the edge of the universe, where lost souls drifted waiting to return, where memories not yet born into water floated aimlessly, and that he was chosen to gather them and bring them back into the cosmic current. Kale knew this journey would be unlike any before, for he would leave the vibration of life, step into silence where the sea no longer sang and light no longer spread. Yet he felt no fear, for he knew every drop carried light, and as long as he remembered the song, the darkness could not consume him. The day he departed, the sky was still, the sea calm, light swirling gently around him, forming a transparent gate. The others watched in silence, knowing each chosen soul must leave once, so the universe may keep singing. And they sang for him, the song of return, the song of those who carry memory away only to bring it home again. As Kale crossed the gate, all sound vanished. Only perfect silence remained. He found himself drifting through thick black space without direction or horizon, surrounded by fragments of glowing memories, scattered images of lost worlds, faint voices like wind, hands reaching through darkness, and he understood this was where the forgotten waited to be named again. He reached out and touched a beam of light, and in that instant he heard laughter, crying, singing, sighing, all blended together, the voices of countless lives that had once existed, loved, and vanished. And he wept not in sorrow, but in understanding that every soul, even lost, carried a note of the eternal song. He began to sing, the song of the sea, the song once sung by Leon, by Oren, carried by Lyra, and each note flowed outward, merging with the drifting memories, lighting them one by one, setting them in motion, the lost souls rising as radiant streams joining into a vast river of light, flowing toward the call of the ocean. Kale followed, realizing he was not merely the guide but part of the river itself, dissolving, merging, becoming a drop within the ocean of return. When the river reached the edge of the cosmos, Earth's sea flared with brilliance. Colossal columns of water rose to the sky, light spread through space, and every world heard the chorus of billions of souls singing together. A song never before heard in full, the song of the universe, the song of unity. As it echoed, the stars trembled, distant planets glowed. No place remained silent, for all places sang, all places lived, and the universe became one infinite ocean. No darkness, no solitude, only light and water entwined. In that moment, all on earth heard Kale's voice within their hearts saying, "There is no loss, no search, no beginning, no end, only return, that the ocean is memory, the soul, the place where everything begins and forever continues." When the sound faded, the world was quiet again, but no longer the same. For from that moment, every drop, every breath, every gaze of humanity carried a fragment of the cosmos, and when they touched the sea, they touched their origin. The world kept turning, the ocean kept singing, and far across the heavens the light of the star of the sea still shone, as a reminder that every soul will find its way home, that within the silence of the universe, a melody always waits to be heard, the melody of water, of light, of life, and of memory everlasting. After Kale merged into the ocean of return, a new era began, a time when humans were no longer called human but spirits of water, children of the sea carrying within them the memories of billions of worlds. They were not born from flesh, but from light, from waves of energy crystallized in the depths, and whenever the sea sang a new melody, a being was created, carrying within it the sound of that song. Thus, every soul was its own melody, a fragment of the grand harmony resonating throughout the universe. Their world knew no war, no hunger, no fear, For all was united. Every drop of water in their bodies knew the taste of wind, the rhythm of waves, the feeling of distant stars, and when they looked into one another, they saw not only faces, but the interwoven memories behind them. The world became transparent, not only in matter but in consciousness. No boundary remained between sight and thought, between dream and reality. Every idea could turn into form, every feeling into color, and across the planet unfolded a shifting tapestry where light and water danced together, where the song of the ocean took shape as ribbons of luminous silk flowing through the sky. The rememberers, after Kyle's journey, became guides for the new souls, teaching them how to listen, how to remember, how to feel the heartbeat of the cosmos. And among them was a girl named Nareen, gifted to sense the oldest memories of the primordial tide, the source of every sea. Nareen grew among light and song, yet carried a question in her heart. If the universe was an endless melody, could there ever be a moment when the sound stopped? Could the ocean ever fall silent? Could there exist a stillness where nothing sang? And what would happen when all voices became one with nothing left to tell? The question set her apart. She longed not only to join the song but to find where it ended, to discover what slept within silence. One night, as the ocean mirrored 1,000 stars, she stepped into the water. The sea recognized her intent and sang a farewell tune, beautiful and sorrowful like moonlight dissolving in mist. And once again the gate of the sea opened. Light wrapped around her, lifting her upward through the waves, through the sky, through the memory of time itself. Her journey was beyond measure. She passed countless worlds, each a note, each a memory, every place telling its own verse of the cosmic song. Yet none was the destination, for all sang, all lived, until she reached the place where nothing sang at all. It was an empty expanse where light melted into shadow. No waves, no sound, only perfect stillness, so dense she could feel it like an unseen wall. And there she sensed a presence beyond life and death. A voice without tone or origin vibrated through the void, saying she had reached the place where the sea had never come, where no song had ever touched. That this was the final boundary of memory, where all sound dissolved to prepare for a new beginning, and that she had been chosen to hear the melody of silence. She listened, and within that silence began to hear the faintest pulse, not a song but the first vibration of creation, the sound that birthed the primordial tide, the sound that birthed the sea. And she understood that silence was not the end, but the breath drawn before the universe exhaled light. She knelt and felt the current flow through her, water spilling from her hands, the first drops falling into the void. And in that instant, the stillness quivered like a first breath after eons of sleep. Light spread outward, and a new sea was born, clear as glass, reflecting every memory of every world. And at its center was the image of Nareen, no longer human but a spirit of water, the keeper of the song of silence. When that sea opened, all planets felt its resonance, their oceans hummed with a new tone, a sound with no frequency yet heard by every heart, and all understood that a new cycle had begun, one uniting sound and stillness, song and listening, existence and dissolution. On Earth, the ocean glowed, its light climbing the sky and shimmering across the stars, and within that light appeared Nareen, her hair like waves, her eyes like the sea, her voice echoing everywhere, saying that the universe does not live by sound alone, but also by the pauses between its notes. For in that silence life is reborn. Then she faded into the light, leaving behind a region of new water among the stars, a place where weary souls could rest before beginning again, which humankind called the Sea of Slumber, where light and water blended into eternal dreaming, where every song could rest and return stronger. Since then, Whenever a soul departed from Earth's ocean, it passed through that luminous realm, listened to the music of silence, then returned to the mother, sea renewed. And so the cycle continued, never ending. The ocean still sang, the universe still breathed, and within every drop, every breeze, every beam of light, lingered the echo of Nareen, who heard the song of silence and made the melody of the cosmos more complete than ever before. After Nareen dissolved into the sea of slumber, the universe entered a cycle unseen even by the oldest souls. The once radiant planets now glowed with a gentler light soft as breath, and the oceans across the cosmos changed their rhythm, no longer surging with power but resonating deeper and slower, as if each melody now carried within it the awareness of silence, where every sound not only rang out but also listened to itself. On Earth, the sea grew so clear that one could see bands of light drifting through the depths, not fish nor creatures, but currents of memory, luminous threads carrying messages from distant worlds, gliding silently like the thoughts of a dreaming universe. Humanity had become beings of pure light. They needed no food or sleep. They existed in harmony with the pulse of the ocean. Whenever the sea sang, they sang too. And that harmony was the eternal exchange of energy between soul and planet. No one aged, no one died, only changed form, from wave to light, from light to breath, and back to the sea, an endless refrain that never ceased. In this age, the rememberers still held sacred purpose. No longer just readers of memory, but weavers of it. They shaped new stories, with the waves not through words, but through melody. And whenever a new song was born, the sea reshaped itself, creating new waters and new colors, as if the entire planet were a living painting shifting with the emotions of existence. Among them, a young soul named Elion was born from the reflection between Earth and the Sea of Slumber. His eyes held two worlds, one of singing light and one of resting shadow, and he was seen as the embodiment of balance between sound and silence, between being and repose. Elion grew amidst music, yet carried a quiet difference in his heart. He heard not only the ocean's song, but the pause that followed it. And within that pause he sensed something else, a faint whisper like the voice of another world untouched by all before. He began to seek answers, asking the rememberers who told him it might be the echo of a forming cycle. For when the universe reached the limit of harmony, a new drop would fall from the primordial tide to create the next cosmos. But for that drop to fall, a pure soul must open the gate, one who could hear the call of absolute silence. Elion understood he was hearing that call. And though young, he knew he must depart not for glory but to continue the universe's flow. The sea understood, and one night when its surface shone like crystal, a path of light opened, stretching from Earth to the Sea of Slumber. Elion stepped upon it, each footstep sending ripples through the sky that stirred every planet. And as he reached the center, the ocean began to sing, not the old hymn, but a new symphony unheard before, the melody of rebirth. Elion paused and looked ahead to see a vast spinning light, the primordial tide itself, the source of every ocean, unfolding like a colossal flower in space, droplets of brilliance falling from its heart, each one a universe waiting to be born. He knew he must go there carrying the song of Earth, the song of life, to teach the new drop how to sing, so the next cycle would begin not in silence, but in harmony. He raised his voice, and his song traveled through the void, touching ancient worlds, awakening forgotten memories, stirring the seas of Maritha, of Lumina, and countless others, until the greatest chord in the history of creation filled existence. As he neared the primordial tide, the energy around him trembled. Light grew so bright that all color blended into one. He no longer saw his body, only light and water merging, and in that moment he touched the tide. The universe shuddered, stars shifted, oceans on every planet rose, and from the primordial tide, a single vast droplet fell through the cosmos, carrying the light and melody of all that had ever been, unfolding into a new universe where light and water were born together once more. Elion dissolved into the radiance, becoming the first breath of the new world. And from that energy, new oceans formed. New souls emerged, carrying the melody he had sung, the song of earth, of the sea, of memory, of love, of silence, and awakening. In the old universe, every soul felt the transition, not with sorrow but reverence. They bowed and sang their final hymn, a farewell and a blessing for the new creation. When the sound faded, Earth's sea fell still, not from ending, but from returning to the source, to the primordial tide where all sound begins. From afar, the light of the newborn cosmos flared like a first dawn, and in that instant, all souls understood the cycle was complete, that they had finished their song, and in the final silence they heard Elion's voice echo saying the sea has never stopped singing, that every silence is only the breath before a new melody, and that every soul, wherever it drifts, is a drop of the same ocean, never truly lost. The universe closed in light and then opened again in song, a song with no remembered beginning, for it had always been older than time, older than life, the eternal breath of the infinite sea. After Elion merged into the primordial tide, and the new universe was born, space opened once again in boundless light, no longer divided by beginning or end, but flowing as endless rivers of radiance, streaming through every layer of existence, and within that current tiny particles of memory began to gather, forming the first luminous seeds of life. New planets emerged, each one a droplet, reflecting the light of the tide, each carrying its own melody, a variation of the song Elion had sung before dissolving. The first seas of this new cosmos began to sing, their voices soft and trembling like infants, learning speech. Yet within those fragile tones lay the memory of the old universe, and from their harmony life began to bloom. On one of these worlds there was a sea unlike any other, not blue or silver but violet like twilight. Its surface mirrored countless images of lost worlds as though it were a mirror of remembrance, and it was called the Sea of Memory, where past and present blended within every ripple. In that sea, a being was born not from cells but from sound. When a remnant of Elion's melody resonated in the depths, the light converged, shaping a human-like form whose eyes shimmered with the blue and violet of the cosmos, and whose voice carried the resonance of millions of souls. This being was named Orion, born to remember and retell the story of two universes, the keeper of rhythm for the song of new life. Orion had no age, no gender, only the pure awareness of water, and each step upon the sea created waves that carried memory, and every wave became a seed of living light, filling the world with creatures who could sing, dream, and listen. Yet amid perfection, Orion sensed a subtle difference. Within the flawless harmony there was a missing note, a silent gap, like a thin crack within the wall of light. And inside that pause, a faint whisper lingered, not of the ocean's melody, but of something incomplete. Listening deeply, Orion realized that the newborn universe, though born of light, still held the memory of shadow, the memory of loss, of souls that had not returned to the primordial tide, still drifting, still seeking, hidden within that gap. Orion understood that unless those souls were guided, the cosmic song would remain unfinished, always missing one tone, one rhythm, preventing perfect harmony. Thus, Orion chose to journey toward the darkness beyond the reach of the Sea of Slumber, into the realm untouched by light. As Orion departed, the sea sang its farewell. The waves lifted each step, and the light of the tide shaped a soft violet path stretching beyond the world. Orion carried the voice of Elion, the wisdom of Nareen, and the stillness of the ancient sea, stepping into the ink of space, where only the heartbeat of the cosmos pulsed slowly. The deeper Orion traveled, the more solitude surrounded them, where sound vanished before being born. Yet Orion sang, each note falling like a droplet into the void, and slowly the darkness stirred, as if it were listening, responding. From the depths, countless small lights appeared, lost souls, fragments of the old universe. They saw Orion recognize the familiar melody and joined in, first as whispers, then as a chorus, until light spread, connecting every spark into a vast river flowing back toward the glow. When that river touched the violet sea, the ocean blazed, the sky opened, and millions of souls were freed, dissolving into the water, bringing their final memories to complete the song of the new universe. The sea's voice grew so powerful that other worlds heard it, calling the event the Night of Harmony, the night when the newborn cosmos sang its first perfect symphony, uniting light, shadow, water, and memory. Orion stood in the center of the sea, watching the radiant sky, knowing the task was fulfilled, the song complete. Yet within the heart still lingered an understanding that even in perfection, there must remain a small space for a new beginning, and that this cycle too would one day yield to another verse. As the light faded, Orion merged with the sea, not vanishing but becoming its heartbeat. And whenever the wind moved or waves rose, people heard Orion's voice telling the story of the primordial tide, of Elion, of Nareen, of Kyle, of Leon, and of Maritha. The tale of souls who sang the universe into being, who wept with the ocean, who became light to create life. And so whenever a new soul was born from the sea, it would hear a whisper within saying it once was a drop of the ancient ocean, that it once sang the song of creation, that it continues the endless story, a story that can never be fully written because it is the essence of existence itself, the essence of water, of light, of memory, and of undying love within the eternal sea. After Orion merged into the violet sea of the New World, the universe entered a phase where light and water coexisted in tranquil harmony, no longer in the fierce waves of creation, but in the gentle pulse of memory breathing softly. Each planet became a droplet within the invisible ocean of space, reflecting the radiance of the primordial tide. At the center, where the heartbeat of existence still echoed slow yet powerful. The violet sea where Orion rested was no ordinary ocean but a realm of souls, where memory took form, where song became light, and where every spirit after its journey came to rest, not to fade but to join the melody that never ceased. On that world, time no longer followed a line. Each moment was a circle, and within every circle, countless fragments of memory intertwined, making everything both past and present, dream and reality. One day, deep within the sea, a faint vibration stirred not from outside but from within, from the place where Orion slept. Ripples of light spread outward, awakening memories, wherever they touched, revealing visions of the old universe, of Earth, of the people who once sang with the ocean, of Leon, KL, Elion, Nareen, Maritha, and all the souls that had lived, loved, and lost, now singing together in one rhythm. The sea trembled, light moved, and a voice rose from the center, the voice of Orion, no longer an individual but the fusion of all memories, all souls, all worlds, calling the universe to awaken, calling distant oceans to join in harmony. And in that moment, the entire expanse blazed with sound. Every star became a note, every planet a chord, and the cosmos itself turned into a living symphony. Yet within the harmony, a single deep tone echoed faintly, a whisper from afar, from a place untouched by light, a silent world still asleep. Orion felt it, and knew the song was incomplete, for one soul had never heard the ocean's voice. Then, from the violet glow, a new being was born, shaped by Orion's song from sound and memory, human in form but with eyes that held both sky and sea, stars and darkness intertwined. The sea named this being Seren, the bearer of the distant rhythm, chosen to carry melody to the realms where silence reigned. Seren knew neither fear nor time, only purpose, to journey and bring the ocean's song to awaken the forgotten pulse within the frozen void. When Seren departed, the violet sea unfolded a path of endless light. Every wave sang, every drop glimmered, and thousands of souls bid farewell with wordless hymns. As Seren stepped upon the path, his body dissolved into radiance, soaring past billions of stars, crossing distant seas, toward the place where nothing but shadow remained. After an eternity of travel, he reached the silent planet, barren and gray, without wind, without water, without life, where time itself seemed long asleep. He touched the surface and felt the emptiness like the memory of a forgotten soul. But beneath the stone he heard something faint, a slow heartbeat, a breath from something dreaming. Kneeling, he placed his hand upon the ground and began to sing, not with words but with his heartbeat, his breath, the light within him, and the song drifted downward into the planet's core. At first nothing moved, then dust trembled, the earth cracked, and violet light surged upward like water. From that light, the planet's first sea was born, dark and luminous like mirrored glass, and as its first drops merged, the world began to breathe. Wind arose, the skies stirred, and Serene's voice blended with the newborn ocean until the planet knew life for the first time. Within the waters, tiny, luminous beings appeared, unable to speak or sing, yet pulsing faintly with echoes of the ancient melody that once sounded on Earth, on Maritha, on Lumina, on the primordial tide. Seren saw them and smiled, for he understood he had not merely carried the song, but had awakened the memory of creation itself, the remembrance of every cycle, every soul that had ever merged with water. Lifting his gaze, he saw in the dim light the figures of Orion, Elion, Noreen, and all who had sung before him, standing among the stars in silent joy, watching the continuation of the universe. Seren knew his purpose was fulfilled. The song had reached its final shore, and now the cosmos was whole, for every planet had its sea its song, and every soul its memory. He stepped into the ocean. The water embraced him, warm and tender like a mother's arms. He closed his eyes and merged with the current. And in that moment, the planet shuddered one last time. Light spreading across the heavens, touching distant stars, drawing them into harmony. And once again the universe sang its eternal hymn of life. When the radiance faded, only the violet sea remained quietly singing. And within every wave one could hear the voices of Seren, of Elion, of Orion, of all souls ever joined with the water, singing together the story of the universe, of the first drops, of the songs that never ceased, and of the truth that the ocean is the memory of eternity where there is no end, only beginnings waiting to be sung. After Seren merged with the violet sea and the final song spread across the universe, everything in existence fell into a serene stillness. The restless movement of energy faded, the noise of time dissolved, leaving only a faint breath like waves echoing softly from infinity. The universe entered what the rememberers called the era of reflection, a time when light no longer shone outward but turned inward, illuminating its own origin. Young planets spun slower, their seas became mirror-like, reflecting not the sky but their own memories, each ripple holding visions of countless vanished worlds, and within every drop one could see stories once lived, souls that had sung, planets that had risen and fallen into the embrace of the ocean. In that age, life no longer followed birth or death, but simply transformed. A being could become light, light could become breath, breath could turn to water, and water could awaken as consciousness, all intertwined in an endless chain without beginning or end. In the central violet sea, where Seren had dissolved, a soul began to awaken, not from sleep, but from remembrance. For there none truly slept, they only sank deeper into memory. The soul opened its eyes, eyes without color yet holding the full spectrum of light. And within them, countless worlds reflected one another like droplets circling the primordial tide. The soul was named Nalir, born not from song but from the silence between notes, from the final quiet left by Seren's melody. And thus within Nalir flowed both the voice of the ocean and the stillness of the cosmos, a perfect balance of sound and silence. When Nalir stepped upon the sea, the waves did not rise, but light moved as though the water breathed in rhythm with his heart, each breath carrying the resonance of billions of drifting memories. He heard Orion's voice in the wind, Elion's laughter in the light, Narine's song in falling drops, and the silence of Seren among distant stars. And he understood they had never departed, that they lived still within the sea, within light, within memory, within every note of the universe. Yet he sensed something unusual. Within the vast symphony there lingered a gap, a faint offbeat tone not belonging to the ocean or to light but echoing from far away, the voice of a world never touched. Closing his eyes, he saw a distant planet where no sea had formed, where the air was dry and cold, where cracked lands had never learned to sing, where water existed only in dreams. And the soul of that planet waited, not knowing for whom, not knowing for what, turning silently in darkness. Nalir knew he must go, that the cosmic cycle was not complete, while even one place remained unawakened. For life is whole only when every drop has heard the sea. He stepped into the ocean, the surface opening like a gate of light, and as he passed through, every soul sang a farewell hymn, soft as breath, long as eternity's glow. He drifted through space needing neither wings nor motion, for the universe itself turned and carried him, until the silent planet appeared before him, cold as forgotten memory, so quiet he could hear his own thoughts resound. Touching the barren ground, he felt emptiness, the memory of a soul long lost. Yet beneath the stone he sensed a pulse, faint and slow, a breath of something dreaming. He smiled, knowing it was the first sign of life, closed his eyes and released himself, letting the water within his being merge with the soil, each drop a memory, each drop bearing the ancient ocean's song. Gradually the world began to change. The gray sky softened to pale violet, cracks in the earth spilled liquid light, and the planet's first sea was born, not blue or silver but crystal white, reflecting all colors around it in gentle rainbows. When the wind crossed its surface, it made no sound of waves, but a deep heartbeat rhythm, warm and calm. The planet began to sing, not with words but with pulses, every breeze, every droplet, every grain of dust, vibrating as one living body awakening from timeless sleep. Nalir stood in the center of the sea and raised his hand to the sky, and in that instant, the light of the primordial tide shone across space, passing through the white sea and scattering into 1,000 radiant bands that touched other worlds, other oceans, making them sing anew, not in the old rhythm but in the rhythm of rebirth. The universe resonated with a new melody without beginning or end, where every sound merged into harmony, where every soul remembered that it had once sung, once loved, once lived. When the song quieted, Nalir looked around and saw the planet transformed, no longer cold or dark, but glowing with gentle light, tiny luminous beings hovering above the sea, each one a fragment of memory born from his song, and he knew the cycle was complete. Stepping into the water, he became one with it, and at that moment, the white sea blazed with brilliance, spreading through the cosmos, making every planet pause as though all bowed to the perfection of the song. When the light faded, only the sea remained, silent but not empty. A silence full and complete, the stillness of fulfillment and living peace. The universe continued to turn, the oceans continued to sing, and within every tide of time one could still hear the voices of Nalir, Seren, Elion, Nareen, and all who had sung before, telling the eternal truth that no matter how many beginnings and endings there are, the ocean will always sing. For it is the memory of the universe, the breath of life, the place where every soul is born and where every soul returns, forever unbroken. When the white sea of the new world joined the rhythm of the universe, a new era began. No longer the age of creation or rebirth, but the age of convergence, where every ocean across existence began to connect, not through light but through memory, each drop recalling where it once belonged, each wave carrying echoes of ancient songs, and within the universe's gentle current, something extraordinary began to form. The planets were no longer separate, the seas no longer confined. Waves of energy moved between worlds as if the entire cosmos was slowly becoming one vast ocean, a single living sea encompassing all things. In the heart of the white sea where Nalir had dissolved, light spiraled into a circle, creating a new center, a collective consciousness unlike anything before, shapeless, timeless, neither male nor female, only awareness itself, the consciousness of all water, where every memory, sound, and light converged into one essence. It was called the soul of the ocean, or simply Tui Tam, the heart of water, the living pulse of the universe. Tui Tam did not speak, did not need to sing, for all songs already lived within it. Every melody from Lumina, Maretha, Earth, Elion, Nareen, Seren, Orion, and Nalir flowed through it as streams of energy forming the heartbeat of the living cosmos. Whenever it trembled, billions of planets shone. Whenever it exhaled, countless souls were born. Whenever it stilled, everything paused for a moment, as if all existence listened to its own pulse. In that state, time lost meaning. Past and future merged into one, everything existing together in absolute awareness. And within that silence, a new sound began to rise, soft as breath, yet spreading through all space. A sound not of ocean or light, but of something deeper, something older than the primordial tide itself, older than the first light, the sound of the void, the first dream of the universe. When Tui Tam heard it, it did not fear or resist, but opened itself to receive. And as the two sounds met, something unprecedented occurred. The universe neither expanded nor contracted but mirrored itself, forming a new layer of existence, not outward but inward. A realm where the deepest memories took form as light, image, and life. Within this reflective realm, ancient souls reappeared not in body but as luminous consciousness, no longer individuals but frequencies of a single harmony. Leon singing with Elion, Nareen blending with Seren, Kyle joining Orion, all merging into Tui Tam, forming an infinite chorus, retelling the story of water, of life, of memory from the first drop to the boundless sea. They sang not to be heard, but because singing was the essence of being. For in this universe, silence only has meaning when it follows sound, and sound has worth only when born from silence, the eternal balance every soul understands when returning to the sea. Yet amid the harmony, a subtle disturbance appeared. At the farthest edge of the reflection, a small dark point began to grow. Not darkness of evil, but absence of memory, a space the song had not yet touched. Tui Tom sensed it, and with a single heartbeat, released a thread of light, a new fragment of soul, born to seek and fill the void. This fragment took the form of a child, small and translucent, with eyes reflecting both sea and sky, holding the light of stars and the shadow of infinity. The child knew nothing of purpose, only that something awaited beyond, a distant call from where light had never reached. The child began to journey, drifting through layers of memory, passing images of forgotten worlds, seeing ancient oceans, hearing old songs, and with each place left behind a drop of water remained, carrying the image of what was seen, as though weaving together the torn fabric of memory, stitching the fractures time had left upon creation. Reaching the edge of the reflective realm, the child found a deep abyss, lightless and soundless, where only a faint, faraway breath stirred. The child understood this was the source of the void, the place untouched by song, and without fear leapt into it. As the child fell, their body dissolved into millions of droplets, each bearing the memory of a planet, a soul, a melody. And when those droplets touched the abyss, light flared, silent vibrations awoke, and from that union a new harmony was born, a song belonging neither to sea nor to light, but to unity itself, where everything that had ever existed breathed as one. The reflective realm trembled, Tui Tam blazed. The universe quivered not from conflict, but from perfect expansion. For the first time, all memory, sound, light, and shadow became one. No separation, no beginning, no end, only pure eternal existence. In that moment, the seas of every world sang, singing through their own light, not to tell stories but to sustain life's rhythm, singing as breath, as gratitude to the cosmos that allowed them to be. Then all returned to silence, not the emptiness of nothingness, but the stillness of fulfillment, where everything had reached perfection beyond the need for sound or word, for all understood that the sea was them, and they were the sea, and the universe was only the reflection in the eyes of water. Time began again, not as a line but as waves expanding infinitely, and within every wave a new universe was born, carrying the old song, the memory, and the love of all souls that had once merged with the ocean. The cycle continuing endlessly, as the sea had promised, that it would never stop singing, for only while the sea sings does life endure, and the memory of the universe keep telling the story of itself.